The alarm cut through the tower at 3 in the morning. Robin was already awake, running diagnostics on the security grid when the sensors screamed. Not the usual pattern of break-ins or escaped meta-humans. This was different. The readouts didn't make sense. Space folded wrong over Jump City's industrial district. He pulled up the live feed and static crackled across half the monitors. The other half showed something that shouldn't exist. According to any physics he understood, reality bent like heated glass, warping the skyline into shapes that hurt to look at directly. Cyborg. Robin's voice stayed level as he triggered the comm. We've got a spatial anomaly. Big one. The response came back groggy, but immediate. How big we talking? Citywide potential. Get everyone up. Robin was already moving, pulling his gear from the weapons locker with practiced efficiency. Belt secured. Birdarangs checked. Grapple line tested. The ritual kept his hands busy while his mind worked the problem. Anomalies this size meant either dimensional breach or reality manipulation. Both categories included threats that could level Jump City before breakfast. The main room filled quickly. Starfire arrived first, her hair slightly disheveled, but her eyes alert. Raven materialized through the floor in a whisper of dark energy, her expression unreadable beneath her hood. Beast Boy stumbled in as a half-transformed mess scales on one arm and feathers sprouting from the other. Cyborg brought up the rear, his optical sensor already scanning through emergency frequencies. Okay. Robin pulled up the holodisplay. Here's what we know. At 0247, sensors detected a massive spatial distortion forming over the docks. No energy signature we recognize, no prior warning, just this. The display showed the distortion in false color. It pulsed like something alive, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that felt wrong. Raven stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. That's not natural. Her voice carried the flat certainty of someone who dealt with unnatural things daily. Something's forcing its way through. Through what? Beast Boy had finally settled on fully human, though his skin still held a faint green tint. Reality. Raven's hand moved in a small gesture, and dark energy flickered around her fingers. The barrier between here and somewhere else is tearing. Starfire's fists ignited with green fire. Then we must stop whatever comes through, yes. Robin wanted to say yes, wanted to treat this like every other threat they'd faced. But the readings kept shifting the numbers, climbing into ranges that made his tactical training scream warnings. We don't know what's coming through yet. He pulled up the secondary sensors. Could be an invasion force. Could be a single entity. Could be something we can negotiate with. Could be something that makes Trigon look friendly. Raven added quietly. The name landed like a stone in the room. Nobody spoke for 3 seconds. Then Cyborg cleared his throat. Readings are spiking. Whatever it is, it's about to break through. Robin made the call. We move in. Standard formation. Raven, I need you scanning for magical signatures. Cyborg, keep all channels open in case this thing tries to communicate. Star, you're our heavy hitter if this goes bad. Beast Boy, aerial reconnaissance. What about you, fearless leader? Beast Boy tried for his usual grin, but it came out strained. I'm making sure we all come back. Robin headed for the door. Towers, stay on alert. If we don't check in every 10 minutes, assume the worst and initiate Protocol 7. The flight to the docks took 4 minutes. Starfire carried Robin her energy trail, cutting green across the pre-dawn dark. Below them, Jump City slept on, unaware that the sky above the waterfront had started to crack. The distortion had grown. It hung 20 feet above an empty shipping container yard, a sphere of twisted space that made Robin's eyes water. Colors that didn't exist in normal light bled from its edges. The air tasted like ozone and copper. They landed in formation, spreading out to cover multiple angles of approach. Robin activated his comm, checking the connection back to tower. Still solid. Good. If this went bad, at least there'd be a record. Raven. She had both hands extended, dark energy weaving complex patterns as she probed the distortion. It's a portal. But not to anywhere I recognize. The signature's wrong. Too clean. Too precise. Meaning this isn't demon magic or dimensional drift. Raven's voice carried a note Robin had learned to worry about. This is technology. Advanced technology. The sphere pulsed once, twice, then it tore open. Light flooded the container yard, green and white and searingly bright. Robin's hand went to his eyes on instinct, then to his utility belt on training. Behind him, Starfire's starbolts charged to full power. Cyborg's sonic cannon hummed, active. Beast Boy shifted into something with better night vision. A figure fell through the portal. Number. Not fell. Dropped. Controlled descent, decelerating at the last second to land in a 3-point crouch that cracked the concrete. The light faded. The portal sealed with a sound like thunder run backwards. The figure stood, teenager, maybe 16, 17, brown hair, green jacket, and a watch on his wrist. That gleamed with technology. Robin's pattern recognition immediately flagged as not from Earth. The kid looked around the container yard with the casual assessment of someone used to landing in strange places, then spotted the Titans. He grinned. Okay. So this is definitely not the null void. His voice carried the confidence of someone who'd talked his way out of worse situations. Let me guess. Local hero team? You guys have those everywhere. Robin's hand stayed on his birdarang. Identify yourself, now. The kid's grin widened. He tapped the watch. Name's Ben. Ben Tennyson. And before you ask, yeah, I'm probably lost. Happens more than you'd think with interdimensional travel. He paused, taking in their ready stances. We're gonna have a problem here because I'm really not in the mood to fight the good guys today. Raven's eyes flashed white for a fraction of a second. Robin caught it. She'd tried to scan him and hit something that pushed back. That device on your wrist, Robin kept his voice level. What is it? Ben glanced down at the watch like he'd forgotten it was there. This, just some tech I picked up, lets me do a few things. Helpful when you're trying to save the universe. The casual tone didn't match the weight of the words. Which, I'm guessing you guys do too, right? The whole hero thing. We protect Jump City. Starfire's voice stayed friendly, but her starbolts didn't dim. And we must know if you are a threat to our home. Fair. Ben held up his hands in a gesture that might have been surrender if his whole posture didn't radiate readiness. I'm not here to cause trouble. Honestly, I don't even know where here is. Was tracking something through the dimensions and got pulled off course. Happens sometimes when Trigon's around. Raven went rigid. Robin's tactical mind cataloged it instantly. That name again. And this stranger knew it. You know Trigon. It wasn't a question. Ran into him once. Nasty piece of work. Ben's casual tone slipped just slightly. Wait. You guys know him too? Because if he's active in this dimension, we might have bigger problems than figuring out who I am. Robin made the split-second call. This kid knew too much. The technology on his wrist registered on sensors as putting out more energy than the tower's reactor. And he'd mentioned saving universes like it was weekend work. Unknown variable, potentially hostile, definitely dangerous. Titans? Robin's hand closed on the birdarang. Contain him. Non-lethal. Now. Ben's expression shifted. The grin dropped. Something colder replaced it. Something that reminded Robin uncomfortably of Batman's mission face. Really? Ben's hand moved to the watch. We're doing this. Starfire moved first starbolt screaming across the container yard. Beast Boy went airborne as a falcon circling high. Cyborg's sonic cannon charged with a rising whine. Raven's dark energy coiled like living shadow. Robin threw the birdarang, already plotting the next 3 moves. Ben slammed his hand down on the watch. Green light erupted across the dock so bright it burned after images. Robin's visor auto-dimmed, saving his vision. When it cleared 2 seconds later, Ben Tennyson was gone. In his place stood something else, 15 feet tall, armored in what looked like living crystal that pulsed with internal light. 4 arms, each ending in claws that crackled with energy. Eyes that burned green and tracked all 5 titans simultaneously with an intelligence that was absolutely unmistakably human. The creature spoke. Ben's voice filtered through something that made the air vibrate. Last chance to talk this out. Robin's tactical assessment updated in real time. Strength superhuman. Durability unknown, but likely extreme. Energy projection confirmed. Threat level rising. He opened his comm to the tower. Protocol 7, we have a hostile metahuman requesting immediate backup authorization. The creature that had been Ben tilted its massive head. Hostile, I just fell through your sky and you attacked me. You tore a hole in reality over my city. Robin kept his voice steady. You know about threats we've faced. And you're refusing to cooperate with local authority. Local authority? One of Ben's 4 arms gestured at the Titans. You're a bunch of teenagers in costumes. I'm a teenager who can turn into things that bench press mountains. We're not that different. Stand down. Robin let the edge show now. Or we put you down. For a long moment, the creature just looked at him. Robin could almost see the calculation happening behind those burning eyes. Then Ben laughed. It sounded like grinding stone. You know what, fine. You want a demonstration? The energy around Ben's claws intensified. Let's see what you've got. He moved, fast, inhumanly fast. 1 second standing 50 feet away, the next second right in front of Cyborg, one massive fist already in motion. The punch connected with a sound like a bell the size of a building. Cyborg flew backwards, crashed through 2 shipping containers, kept going. Starfire hit Ben from above, starbolts at full power. They detonated against his crystal armor in explosions that lit up the docks. Ben barely staggered. He swung a backhand that would have taken Starfire's head off if she hadn't dodged at the last instant. Beast Boy dove in as a tiger, then a gorilla, then something with too many teeth. Ben caught him mid-transformation, held him at arm's length, then tossed him almost gently toward the bay. Not trying to kill, just removing pieces from the board. Raven's dark energy wrapped around Ben's legs, trying to immobilize him. He shattered it with a pulse of green light that made Raven stumble back, her hand going to her head. Robin moved in close, exploiting the opening. Smoke pellet first, then flashbang. In the chaos, he got inside Ben's guard, found the watch, planted a tracker, and dove clear before Ben's fist cratered the pavement where he'd been standing. Not bad. Ben's voice carried genuine respect. But you're outclassed here, all of you. He was right. Robin hated that he was right. Every move they made, Ben countered. Every combination they tried, he adapted. Not through skill or training, just raw power and the ability to shrug off anything they threw at him. This was what fighting a force of nature felt like. Robin opened the comm again. Raven, assessment. Her voice came back strained. He's not lying. That's the worst part. He's genuinely trying not to hurt us. Can we win? Pause. 3 seconds. That was answer enough. Stand down. Robin's order cut across the team channel. Everyone pull back, now. The fighting stopped. Ben stepped back immediately, his posture relaxing, even as his crystal form stayed ready. The Titans regrouped around Robin, battered, but not broken yet. Smart call. Ben's massive head nodded. Like I said, not here to fight you. Robin's mind raced through options. They couldn't beat this kid in direct combat. The power differential was too extreme. But they also couldn't just let him wander Jump City unchecked, which left negotiation. He hated negotiation when he didn't have leverage. You said you're lost. Robin kept his tone neutral. You need a way home. Eventually. The crystal form shrugged, all four shoulders moving in unsettling synchrony. But yeah, that'd be nice. Then here's the deal. You come with us, voluntarily. We figure out where you're from and how to get you back. In exchange, you don't use that thing. Robin pointed at the watch. In our city, without our permission. Ben's eyes narrowed. You don't trust me. I don't know you. Robin met that burning gaze steadily. And until I do, you're a potential threat to 800,000 people. That's my job. Protecting them. Another pause. Robin could see the calculation happening again. Then Ben raised one massive hand to the watch on his chest. Green light flared. The crystal form dissolved. Ben Tennyson stood there again, human and teenager, and somehow more dangerous for looking normal. Okay. He met Robin's eyes. But we're gonna have a conversation about the whole permission thing. I don't do well with authority. Neither do I. Robin allowed himself a thin smile. We'll figure it out. Behind his back, Robin's hand signaled the others. Stay ready. Stay alert. This isn't over. Ben Tennyson grinned back, and something in that expression told Robin the kid had caught the signal and didn't care. This was going to be complicated. Raven felt him before she saw him walk through the tower doors. Not the usual awareness she maintained of her teammates, the comfortable presence of people she'd learned to tolerate and eventually trust. This was different. Ben Tennyson registered on senses that had nothing to do with sight or sound. He existed wrong, like a color that shouldn't be possible, or a note that fell between all the keys on a piano. She sat in her meditation chamber, legs crossed in lotus position, and watched through her inner sight as Robin led the newcomer through tower security. The boy's aura blazed. Too bright. Too dense. Reality bent slightly around him, even when he wasn't using that device, compensating for something that didn't fit properly into the normal framework of existence. Raven had felt this kind of wrongness exactly twice before. Once from Trigon, once from herself. She descended through the floor rather than take the stairs. The main room had fallen into an awkward silence. Robin stood near the computer console, arms crossed, radiating controlled suspicion. Starfire hovered a few inches off the ground, her natural friendliness warring with caution. Cyborg ran scans from 3 different angles. His human eye narrowed while his optical sensor cycled through spectrum analyses. Beast Boy had transformed into a house cat and was pretending to nap on the couch. But his ears tracked every sound. Ben Tennyson stood in the center of it all, hands in his jacket pockets, looking around the tower with the same casual assessment he'd used at the docks. When his gaze landed on Raven, something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or wariness, the magic one. He said it like stating a fact, not asking a question. Raven materialized fully, her boots touching down without sound. Raven. Ben. He tilted his head slightly. You tried to scan me earlier. That was you right at the docks. Yes. Find anything interesting? Raven considered lying, decided against it. You're dangerous. Ben's mouth quirked. Not quite a smile. Yeah, I get that a lot. Robin cleared his throat. Raven, I need your assessment. Full magical workup. Whatever that device is, I want to know if it's a threat to the city. It's technology, not magic. Raven kept her voice flat, her usual defense against emotion. I already told you that, but you felt something. Robin's tactical mind never stopped working. When you tried to read him, what was it? All eyes turned to her. Raven hated being the center of attention. Hated the expectation that she could explain things that existed beyond explanation. But Robin was right. They needed to know. She stepped closer to Ben, her empathic senses fully open. The wrongness intensified. Not malevolent, not evil, just fundamentally misaligned with the fabric of this reality, like trying to fit a 3-dimensional object through a 2-dimensional space. He doesn't belong here. The words came out quieter than she intended. Not in a metaphorical sense. Literally. He's from somewhere else, somewhere the rules work differently. Ben's expression went carefully neutral. You can feel that. I can feel a lot of things. Raven met his eyes. Hers were violet. His were brown, but behind them, something else looked out. Something that had seen too much for 16 years. You've been to places that would break most people. Done things that left marks. So have you. Ben's voice lost its casual edge. I can tell. Takes one to know one. The room temperature dropped 3 degrees. Starfire started to drift forward, protective instinct kicking in. But Raven raised one hand. Stop! She could handle this. The watch. Raven gestured at the device on Ben's wrist. Show me. Ben glanced at Robin. You good with this? I want answers. Robin's tone left no room for argument. She's our best chance at getting them. For a moment, Raven thought Ben might refuse. Then he shrugged and held out his arm. The watch gleamed under the tower's lights, its surface covered in alien symbols that hurt to look at directly. Technology, yes. But technology so advanced, it might as well be magic. The distinction hardly mattered at this level. Raven extended her awareness carefully this time, probing rather than scanning. The device responded immediately, its energy signature flaring in her magical sight. Not hostile, just aware. It knew she was there. Images flooded through her mind. Flashes of things that shouldn't exist. Creatures made of living flame. Beings of pure crystal. Monsters that could swallow stars. And behind all of it, a presence. Young. Determined. Carrying weight that would have crushed someone weaker. She pulled back sharply, her breath coming faster than she liked. Raven. Starfire's hand found her shoulder. Are you well? Fine. Raven forced her breathing to steady. The device is called an Ultimatrix. It stores genetic templates. Lets him transform into different species. Hundreds of them. Cyborg whistled low. Hundreds, and each one's got different powers. Different everything. Raven looked at Ben with new understanding. Strength speed abilities. Some of them are... She paused, searching for words that wouldn't cause panic. Significantly powerful. How powerful? Robin's question cut straight to the tactical concern. Raven considered her answer carefully. What she'd seen in those flashes terrified her. Not because of malice or evil intent, but because of sheer scale. Ben Tennyson at full capacity could reshape continents, could fight beings that treated planets like toys, powerful enough that we couldn't stop him if he decided to be a problem. She kept her voice level, stating fact. Powerful enough that Jump City would be collateral damage if he lost control. The silence that followed felt heavy. Beast Boy had stopped pretending to sleep. Starfire's hands glowed faintly green. Even Cyborg looked uncertain, his usual confidence shaken. Ben broke the quiet. I'm not going to lose control. Everyone says that. Raven knew her tone came out too harsh, but the memories were too fresh. Right up until they do. I've had this thing for years. Ben's voice stayed calm, but something flickered in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, or frustration. Saved my universe more times than I can count. I know what I'm doing. Your universe? Raven caught the phrasing. Not this one. Yeah, not this one. Ben pulled his arm back, the watch disappearing beneath his jacket sleeve. Which is why I said I'd cooperate. I don't know your world, don't know your threats. So I'm willing to play by your rules until I figure out what's going on. Robin moved closer, his detective instincts clearly working. You mentioned Trigon at the docks. How do you know that name? Raven went very still. This was the question she'd been dreading. Trigon existed across dimensions, his influence spreading like poison through reality itself. If Ben had encountered him before, it meant things were worse than she'd thought. Ben's expression darkened. Ran into him in another dimension. Different version than yours, probably. But same general evil demon vibe. He looked at Raven. I'm guessing he's your problem, too. He's my father. The words came out flat, automatic. The truth she'd learned to weaponize by making it casual. Ben blinked. Oh, that's... He paused, seeming to recalibrate. That's complicated. You have no idea. Raven wrapped her arms around herself, a defensive posture she rarely allowed. Is that why you're here? Did Trigon pull you through dimensions? Maybe. Ben frowned, thinking. The portal I was tracking had demonic energy signatures. I thought I was chasing something else. But if your version of Trigon is active, he might have interfered. Pulled me off course? Raven's mind raced. Trigon rarely acted without purpose. If he'd brought Ben here, it meant he saw an opportunity. Or a threat. Or worse, both. We need to tell the others. Robin was already moving toward the console. If Trigon's making moves, we need to be ready. Wait, Raven's voice stopped him. There's something else. She turned back to Ben, her empathic senses still raw from the contact with the Ultimatrix. The device itself was neutral, a tool. But the boy who wielded it carried darkness. Not evil. Just pain. Scars that ran deep, hidden under confidence and jokes. You fought things like Trigon before. Another statement, not a question. Things that threatened everything. And you won. Ben met her eyes. Yeah, most of the time. Most of the time isn't good enough here. Raven let some of her own darkness show. Trigon doesn't lose. He corrupts, destroys, turns everything he touches into extensions of himself. If you think you can just punch him hard enough to stop him, you're wrong. I wasn't planning on punching him. Ben's tone shifted, going serious in a way that reminded Raven of Robin in mission mode. I've learned the hard way that raw power doesn't solve every problem. Sometimes you need strategy, teamwork. He glanced around at the assembled Titans. That's why I agreed to come here. You guys know this world. Know Trigon's patterns. I'm just the weapon you point at whatever needs breaking. The honesty surprised her. Raven had expected arrogance, the kind of swagger that came with godlike power. Instead, Ben Tennyson sounded tired, old, like someone who'd learned that strength alone meant nothing without knowing where to apply it. Starfire drifted forward, her natural empathy overcoming caution. You have fought many battles, yes, carried heavy burdens. Ben's casual mask slipped for just a second. Yeah, you could say that. Then you understand. Starfire's smile held genuine warmth. We are stronger together than apart. This is the way of the Titans. The whole team thing. Ben's mask returned, but not quite as firmly. Not really my specialty. I'm kind of used to working solo. So was I. Robin's voice carried an edge of understanding. Before I met them. But here's the thing about being stronger than everyone else. He stepped closer to Ben, meeting him eye to eye. It means when you mess up, the consequences are bigger. When you fail, more people get hurt. You need people who can tell you when you're wrong. And you think you can do that? Ben's tone held challenge, but not hostility. Tell me when I'm wrong. I know I can. Robin didn't blink. Because protecting people isn't about power, it's about judgment. And right now, your judgment got you lost in another dimension chasing demonic energy. So yeah, you need us as much as we might need you. The two teenagers stared at each other for a long moment. Raven watched the dynamic shift, the initial hostility, settling into something more complex. Not quite respect, not yet trust, but the foundation for both. Ben broke first, his grin returning. Okay, fair point. So what's the play here? I crash on your couch until we figure out the Trigon situation. You stay in the tower. Robin laid out the terms. Guest quarters, full access to common areas. But the lab, the evidence room, and the communications hub are off limits without supervision. Prison with better furniture. Ben didn't sound offended, just amused. Fine, but I'm not sitting around doing nothing if your demon daddy decides to attack. Raven flinched at the phrasing. Beast Boy finally shifted back to human, sitting up on the couch. Dude, not cool. What? Ben looked genuinely confused. She called him her father. He caught Raven's expression and stopped. Sorry. Sensitive subject. You could say that. Raven pulled her hood up, retreating behind the familiar shadows. Just don't bring him up unless necessary. Noted. Ben had the grace to look embarrassed. Look, I'm not great with the whole emotional intelligence thing. I usually just hit stuff until problems go away. So if I say something stupid, just tell me. Despite herself, Raven's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. I'll make a list. Cyborg laughed, the tension in the room breaking. Oh man, this is gonna be fun. Two people who don't do feelings stuck in the same building. I do feelings just fine. Ben's protest sounded weak even to Raven's ears. I just express them through alien transformations and explosion sounds. Beast Boy grinned. He's gonna fit right in. Robin didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Cyborg set up the East guest room. Beast Boy show Ben where everything is. Starfire kitchen duty. Make sure we have enough food. I've seen meta-humans eat. I can hear you. Ben raised his hand. And yeah, transforming burns calories like crazy. Fair warning. The Titans dispersed to their tasks. Raven started to retreat to her room when Ben's voice stopped her. Hey, Raven. She turned one eyebrow raised. Thanks for the scan, for being honest about what you saw. Ben's expression had gone serious again. I know it probably wasn't pleasant. Raven studied him. The wrongness she'd felt earlier remained, but understanding it helped. He didn't belong here because he'd outgrown his own reality, become something that needed more space than one dimension could provide. It wasn't malicious, just inevitable, like her own demon heritage, like the darkness she fought every day to control. You're not the monster you're afraid of becoming. The words came out before she could stop them. I would have felt it if you were. Ben's eyes widened slightly. How did you? Empath. Raven allowed herself the smallest smile. I feel everything, including fear. She paused. You're terrified of losing control, of becoming the weapon everyone expects. That fear keeps you human. Is that a good thing? Ben's question came out quiet, vulnerable. It's the only thing. Raven turned toward the hallway. The moment you stop being afraid of your own power is the moment you become exactly what you fear. She left him standing there, processing. Behind her closed door, Raven settled back into meditation position. But peace wouldn't come. Her senses still registered Ben's presence 3 floors away, that blazing wrongness that refused to dim. Trigon had brought him here. She felt certain of it now. The question was why? What did her father see in Ben Tennyson that made him valuable enough to manipulate across dimensions? The answer came with cold clarity. Trigon saw a weapon, one powerful enough to crack reality itself if aimed correctly. And if the Demon Lord could corrupt Ben, could turn all that strength to his own purposes, nothing in this world would be able to stop him. Raven's hands clenched in her lap. She'd spent her whole life running from her father's influence, fighting against the destiny he'd planned for her. Now another pawn had entered the game. Young, powerful, dangerously naive about the ways demons twisted good intentions into apocalyptic consequences. She would have to watch him. Not just for the team's safety, but for his own. Because Ben Tennyson didn't understand yet what Raven had learned through blood and pain. In Trigon's games, everyone lost. Even the pieces who thought they were players, especially them. Robin hadn't slept. 48 hours since Ben Tennyson arrived, and the tactical problems kept multiplying. He sat in the tower's command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing Jump City from 16 different angles. Everything looked normal. Street crime down to typical levels. No major disasters. No dimensional rifts tearing through downtown. And that was the problem. Too quiet. Too calm. Like the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. His fingers moved across the console, pulling up the tracker data he'd planted on Ben during their fight at the docks. The device fed constant updates. Ben's location, currently the tower's east wing. Heart rate elevated, but not dangerously so. Energy readings from the Ultimatrix, dormant, but ready to activate in under a second. Robin had fought meta-humans before. Worked with some, against others. He understood the threat they posed when control slipped. But this was different. Ben operated on a scale that made conventional containment protocols useless. If the kid decided to tear through Jump City, there would be no stopping him. Only damage control. The thought kept Robin awake. You're obsessing again. Cyborg's tone came from the doorway. I can tell because you've got that look. The one Batman probably gets when he's planning 15 contingencies for breakfast. 16. Robin didn't look away from the screens. And I'm not obsessing. I'm preparing. Uh-huh. Cyborg crossed the room, his mechanical eye scanning the same displays. You've been staring at that tracker data for 6 hours. The kid hasn't done anything except eat half our food supply and ask Starfire about alien planets. He transformed twice yesterday. Robin pulled up the incident reports. Once to reach something on a high shelf. Once because Beast Boy dared him to. Yeah. And both times he asked permission first. Cyborg's patience carried an edge Robin found irritating. He's following your rules, being cooperative. What more do you want? Robin finally looked at his teammate. I want to understand what we're dealing with. Every piece of intelligence I've gathered says Ben Tennyson is powerful enough to reshape continents. That kind of power doesn't just cooperate because we asked nicely. Maybe he's a good kid who got stuck in a bad situation. Cyborg's human eye held steady. You ever think of that? I think everyone's a good kid until pressure breaks them. Robin turned back to the console. And I think we don't know nearly enough about what kind of pressure Ben's used to handling. The elevator chimed. Raven emerged, her posture tense despite the neutral expression. She approached without greeting, which meant bad news. We have a problem. She gestured at the displays. Spatial distortions are increasing. Small ones, scattered across the city, like aftershocks from the portal that brought Ben here. Robin's focus sharpened instantly. How small? Pocket-sized. Nothing dangerous yet. Raven pulled up a map, red dots marking locations. But they're following a pattern. Each one appears closer to the tower than the last. Cyborg leaned in, analyzing the data. That's not random. Someone's testing our defenses. Or tracking Ben. Robin's mind raced through possibilities. Raven, can you determine the source? Demonic energy. Faint, but consistent. Her violet eyes met his. This is Trigon, or something working for him. The name settled over the command center like ice. Robin had faced Trigon once before during Raven's birthday. The encounter had nearly destroyed them all. If the demon was making moves again, specifically targeting their newest variable, nothing good would follow. Does Ben know? Robin asked. Not yet. Raven's hands clenched briefly, then relaxed. I wanted to confirm before causing panic. But we need to tell him. If Trigon's interested in the Ultimatrix, we need to know why. Robin opened his mouth to respond when new alarms blared across every system simultaneously. Not spatial distortions this time. Something else. Something immediate. The main display shifted, showing Jump City's warehouse district. Fire. Explosions. And in the center of the chaos, a signature Robin knew too well. "Slade, everyone up." Robin hit the alert, feeling something almost like relief at having a concrete threat to address. "We've got confirmed hostile activity. Slade's making a move." The tower came alive. Starfire descended through the ceiling already battle-ready. Beast Boy burst from the common room, mid-transformation. And Ben appeared from the hallway, his hand already on the Ultimatrix. "What's happening?" Ben's casual demeanor evaporated, replaced by focused intensity. "New threat? Old threat." Robin pulled up Slade's file. "Mercenary, enhanced, tactical genius. He's been our problem for years." Ben studied the image. "And he's attacking now, right after I show up. That's not coincidence." "No." Robin met Ben's eyes. "It's not. Which means this is either a test or a trap. Possibly both." "So what's the play?" Ben's question came direct, tactical. No jokes, no bravado, just a soldier asking for orders. The shift surprised Robin. He'd expected argument, maybe insistence that Ben could handle it alone. Instead, the kid waited for instruction, like any team member would. Maybe Cyborg had a point. Standard formation. Robin outlined the strategy quickly. Cyborg and Starfire take the perimeter. Beast Boy, aerial support and evacuation if civilians are present. Raven, I need you scanning for demonic influence in case this connects to Trigon. Ben, you're with me. Central assault. You want me on the front line? Ben raised an eyebrow. Thought you didn't trust me? I don't. Robin said it flatly without apology. But if this is a trap designed to test your capabilities, I need to see how you respond. And I need you where I can observe. For a moment, tension crackled between them. Then Ben nodded. Fair enough. But if this goes bad, I'm not holding back to make you comfortable. If this goes bad, I'm counting on you not to. Robin headed for the exit. Titans move out. The flight to the warehouse district took 3 minutes. Starfire carried Robin, her speed cutting through night air like a green comet. Below them, Jump City's lights blurred into streams. Beside them, Ben kept pace, easily transformed into something that flew through energy propulsion and crystalline wings. Robin noted the choice. Fast, maneuverable, armored. Ben was thinking tactically, not just reaching for maximum power. They landed in formation 50 yards from the nearest explosion. The warehouse district burned in 4 locations, fires spreading in patterns too precise to be accidental. Slade's work. Always surgical, always calculated. Spread out! Robin's command cut across the team comm. Find Slade. Find out what he wants. Don't engage alone. The Titans scattered. Robin activated his night vision, scanning for heat signatures. The fires made it difficult, too much thermal noise. He switched to motion tracking instead, filtering for human-sized movement. There, 3rd warehouse, 2nd floor. Robin fired his grapple, swinging up to the indicated position. He landed silently, bird-a-rang already in hand. The warehouse interior was dark, filled with shipping crates and industrial equipment. Perfect ambush terrain. I know you're here, Slade. Robin kept his back to a wall, eliminating angles of attack. Show yourself. As direct as ever, Robin. Slade's tone echoed from somewhere above. I appreciate consistency. A figure dropped from the rafters, orange and black armor gleaming in scattered firelight. Slade landed 20 feet away, his posture relaxed, but ready. The mask made his expression unreadable, but Robin knew the calculation would be there. Slade always enjoyed these encounters. The fires are a distraction. Robin didn't bother with questions, just stated facts. You wanted to draw us out. What's the real objective? Very good. Slade's approval sounded genuine. You've learned not to waste time with theatrics. I'm impressed. Answer the question. I wanted to meet your new friend. Slade tilted his head slightly. The boy with the interesting watch. The one who tore through reality itself to land in our laps. You must admit, Robin, that's quite the acquisition. Robin's hand tightened on the bird-a-rang. Ben's not an acquisition. He's a person who's cooperating with us temporarily. Cooperating? Slade's chuckle held amusement. Is that what you call it? I watched the doc footage, enhanced it, analyzed every frame. Do you know what I saw? Enlighten me. A weapon pretending to be a teenager. Slade's tone went cold. Or perhaps a teenager pretending he's not a weapon. I haven't decided which is more dangerous. Movement behind Robin. He spun Bertarang flying before conscious thought. It struck crystal armor and clattered away harmlessly. Ben had arrived, his transformed state making the warehouse feel suddenly cramped. Talking about me? Ben's filtered tone held an edge. I'm right here. Say it to my face. Slade regarded Ben with clinical interest. Fascinating. The transformation is instant. No preparation, no visible strain. The technology must be remarkable. It's none of your business. Ben's forearms flexed energy crackling around the claws. Robin want me to end this? No. Robin positioned himself between them, though the geometry felt absurd. Slade doesn't set fires for fun. There's a secondary objective. We need to find it before engaging. Smart. Slade applauded slowly. But you're thinking too small, Robin. The fires aren't hiding a secondary objective. They're revealing one. The warehouse shook. Not from explosions, from something underneath. Robin's tactical mind processed it instantly. Underground, drilling. Slade had been excavating while they were distracted. What are you after? Robin demanded. Information. Slade gestured casually toward Ben. Your friend arrived through a dimensional portal. That portal left traces. Energy signatures. Residue. I simply collected samples while you were busy playing host. Ben's energy output spiked, reading hot enough to make Robin's suit sensors scream warnings. You what? Easy. Robin's command cracked through the tension. Ben, stand down. Slade, what are you planning to do with that data? Sell it, perhaps? Study it. Or simply keep it from you. Slade's shrug conveyed indifference. Markets exist for dimensional technology. I imagine several parties would pay well for insight into devices that can breach reality itself. Over my dead body. Ben started forward. Robin grabbed his arm. The crystal felt hot, almost burning through his glove. Ben, stop. Think. If we attack now, Slade escapes and we learn nothing. We need to know who he's working with. The boy's right to be angry. Slade retreated toward the warehouse's far wall. I've taken something precious. The question is, what will he do about it? Ben's transformation dissolved in a flash of green light. He stood there human again, breathing hard, fists clenched. Robin saw the calculation in his eyes. The same decision-making process Robin used in the field. Weigh options. Assess consequences. Choose the path that minimized damage. You're baiting me. Ben's tone came out flat, controlled. Trying to see what I'll do under pressure. Testing my limits. Very astute. Slade inclined his head. And you're an idiot if you think I'm playing your game. Ben looked at Robin. We contain the fires. Evacuate anyone nearby. Then we track this guy properly instead of chasing him through burning buildings. Pride flickered in Robin's chest, quickly suppressed. Agreed. Titan's containment protocol. Slade's not the priority right now. Disappointing. Slade triggered something in his gauntlet. Smoke erupted across the warehouse, thick and chemical. But educational. We'll speak again soon, Robin. And next time, I'll have more interesting questions for your weapon. When the smoke cleared, Slade was gone. Robin's tracker showed him already 3 blocks away, moving fast through underground tunnels that shouldn't exist. Prepared escape routes, always. Ben slammed his fist against a crate, leaving a dent. I could have caught him, could have ended this. Maybe. Robin deactivated his tracker. But then you'd be doing exactly what he wanted. Reacting instead of thinking. That's how people like Slade win. People like Slade, Ben's frustration bled through. He's just some mercenary with decent armor. I've fought worse. No. Robin's tone went sharp. You fought stronger, not worse. Slade doesn't win through power. He wins through manipulation, through making his enemies destroy themselves trying to stop him. The distinction landed. Ben's expression shifted understanding, replacing anger. Like Trigon. Ben dropped his volume. Different methods, same strategy. Get inside your head and let you do the damage for them. Exactly. Robin headed for the exit. Which is why we don't give either of them the satisfaction. We stay disciplined, stay smart, and we figure out what they really want before they can use us to get it. Outside, the Titans had contained 3 of 4 fires. Cyborg's sonic cannon disrupted the chemical accelerants. Starfire's starbolts created fire breaks. Beast Boy shifted between forms, hurting flames away from occupied structures. Raven wrapped buildings in dark energy shields, protecting them from heat damage. Professional, efficient, a team that knew how to work together. Ben watched them with something like envy in his expression. You guys do this a lot. Not a question, an observation. Every day. Robin surveyed the scene, checking for casualties. None visible. Good. Being a hero isn't about power, Ben. It's about showing up, again and again, even when it's not exciting. Yeah. Ben's tone carried weight. I'm starting to see that. They worked through the night. Containing fires, documenting evidence, interviewing witnesses. By dawn, the warehouse district was secure and the investigation complete. Slade had indeed excavated beneath the original portal site, collecting dimensional residue that could theoretically be used to track Ben's point of origin, or to replicate the technology, or worse. Robin filed the reports mechanically, his mind already working through countermeasures. They needed to understand the Ultimatrix better. Needed to know what Slade could actually do with the samples he'd stolen. Needed to determine if Trigon's spatial distortions connected to Slade's timing. Too many variables, too many unknowns. And at the center of it all, a teenager who could reshape reality on a whim, asking Robin to trust him. Back at the tower, Raven pulled Robin aside. Her expression remained neutral, but her aura flickered with concern. The distortion stopped. She said it quietly, not wanting the others to hear. The moment Slade started his operation, Trigon's probes ceased. They're working together, Robin had suspected. Having confirmation made it real. How deep does this go? None. I don't know. Raven's honesty carried its own weight. But Trigon doesn't form alliances. He uses people. Which means Slade thinks he's the one in control and Trigon is letting him think that, until he's not useful anymore. Robin finished the thought. Until he's not useful anymore. Raven agreed. And when that happens, whatever Trigon really wants will be revealed. We need to be ready. Robin watched through the tower's windows as Ben helped Cyborg repair fire damage to one of the warehouses. The kid worked efficiently, using alien forms Robin didn't recognize to handle tasks that would require specialized equipment. Showing off, maybe. Or maybe just helping the only way he knew how. Trust was earned, not given. Robin believed that. Had lived by it since leaving Batman's shadow. But maybe, just maybe, it also had to be offered before it could be earned. Raven. Robin made the decision. I need you to teach Ben about Trigon, everything you know. His methods, his psychology, how he corrupts people. Why? Suspicion colored her tone. Because if Trigon wants Ben for something, our best defense is making sure Ben understands what he's up against. Robin met her eyes. And because the kid listened to me tonight, chose discipline over power, that deserves respect. Raven studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I'll talk to him. She paused. Robin, be careful. Trust is good. But Trigon specializes in turning good intentions into apocalypses. I know. Robin returned to his console, pulling up new data streams. That's why we prepare for both outcomes. Hope Ben's on our side. Plan for what happens if he's not. Raven departed without further comment. Robin worked through the morning building contingencies within contingencies. Tracker data, combat protocols, evacuation procedures, and buried deep in encrypted files, a plan he hoped never to implement. Protocol Omega. What to do if Ben Tennyson became the threat they all feared. The plan was incomplete. Robin didn't know enough yet to finish it, but he would learn. Watch, analyze. Because that's what leaders did. They prepared for the worst while working toward the best. Even when preparing for the worst meant planning to stop someone who'd started to feel like an ally, especially then. Outside, dawn broke over Jump City. Another day, another threat survived. And somewhere in the darkness, Slade examined his stolen samples, while Trigon's dimensional distortions prepared to resume their patient advance. The game was escalating. Robin intended to be ready when it finally broke. Ben knew the feeling in his gut. Had learned to recognize it over years of saving universes and nearly dying in the process. That cold electric awareness that something was about to go catastrophically wrong. He felt it now, sitting in the tower's training room, while Raven explained Trigon's psychology in her flat, clinical way. Every word she spoke made his skin crawl. Not because the information was new. He'd fought demons before. Dealt with reality warpers and dimension eaters. Things that should have ended him didn't. What bothered him was how familiar it all sounded. The manipulation tactics. The long game strategy. The way Trigon turned his enemy's strengths into weaknesses. Ben had faced exactly one other being who operated that way. Vilgax, and those encounters had nearly killed him, multiple times. You're not listening. Raven's observation cut through his thoughts. Your eyes are here, but your mind is somewhere else. I'm listening. Ben refocused on her pale face framed by that dark hood. Trigon corrupts through emotional leverage. Finds what you love and twists it into chains. Uses your own desires against you. I get it. Raven's violet eyes held steady. You think you're immune because you fought similar threats? That's exactly the mindset Trigon exploits. Ben opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right. He did think he was immune. The Ultimatrix gave him options, but options meant vulnerabilities. How do I avoid it? Direct question, no bravado. Don't fight Trigon directly. Survive him. Endure until I can seal him. Raven's hands clenched briefly. Your device stores genetic templates. Trigon corrupts living things at the cellular level. Every form you use gives him another vector. The logic hit hard. His greatest strength weaponized against him. So what am I supposed to do? Frustration bled into his words. Just stand there and let him win. You're supposed to listen to me when I tell you the plan. Robin's voice came from the doorway. He entered with Cyborg, both carrying equipment Ben didn't recognize. Because we don't fight fair. We fight smart. Ben watched as they set up what looked like a portable sensor array. Cyborg plugged it into his arm interface screens, flickering to life with data streams. We've been analyzing the spatial distortions. Robin pulled up a holographic map of Jump City. Red dots marked locations in an expanding spiral pattern. They're not random. Trigon's building something, an anchor point. For what? Ben already knew he wouldn't like the answer. A pocket dimension. Raven's tone went flat. A copy of Jump City under his control. When it's complete, he'll swap it with the real thing. Everyone here will be trapped in his realm while he manifests fully in ours. Ben had seen similar strategies. Dimension replacement. It was elegant and horrifying. By the time people realized they were in the wrong reality, escape would be impossible. How long until he finishes? Ben asked. The best. Hours. Cyborg's human eye met his. Maybe less. The distortions are accelerating. Robin's expression hardened, which means we move now. Before he's ready, we find the anchor point and destroy it. And if destroying it triggers the swap early, Ben had learned to ask the uncomfortable questions. If we're the ones who trap Jump City in hell, then we make sure we're inside the pocket dimension when it happens. Robin said it with the calm of someone reading a checklist because panic was contagious, and he refused to spread it. We fight on Trigon's ground. Keep him busy while Raven works the sealing ritual from the outside. The plan had holes big enough to fly the tower through. Ben opened his mouth to list them, then caught the look in Robin's eyes. The teenager knew. They all knew. This was a desperate gambit with terrible odds. They were doing it anyway, because no other options existed. Fine. Ben stood rolling his shoulders to release tension. Where's the anchor point? Cyborg highlighted a section of the map. The industrial district. Same area where Ben had first arrived. Of course, his portal had weakened reality there, making it easier for Trigon to exploit. His fault, again. The familiar guilt rose in Ben's chest. How many times had his actions created problems for other people? How many worlds had he saved only to leave them vulnerable to the next threat? Being a hero meant accepting that responsibility, but it never got easier. Ben. Starfire's gentle voice surprised him. She'd entered silently, her usual brightness dimmed to something more serious. You have the expression of one who blames himself. This is not your doing. I tore a hole in your reality. Ben met her eyes. Trigon's using it. That's textbook my doing. You did not choose to arrive here. Starfire's logic was simple but hard to argue against. And you have chosen to help rather than flee. That makes you friend, not foe. Friend. The word settled uncomfortably. Ben didn't make friends easily. Most people either feared him or wanted to use him. The Titans were different. They'd attacked him on sight, sure. But once the fighting stopped, they'd offered cooperation instead of demands. Robin still didn't trust him. Ben could live with that. Trust was earned. But maybe he could start earning it. Okay. Ben activated the Ultimatrix, scrolling through available forms. If we're doing this, we do it right. I need to know the terrain, the anchor point's exact location, and what kind of resistance Trigon's likely to throw at us. Robin's expression shifted. Not quite approval, but close. Cyborg has the coordinates. Raven will brief you on demon-class entities we might encounter. We leave in 10 minutes. The team dispersed to prepare. Ben found himself alone in the training room, staring at the Ultimatrix's glowing interface. Hundreds of aliens, thousands of possible combinations, if he went ultimate. Against any normal threat, he'd be unstoppable. But Raven's warning echoed. The more he used, the more vulnerable he became. So he'd have to be smart, surgical. Use exactly enough power to accomplish the objective without overextending. Robin would appreciate that approach. Assuming they all survived long enough for Robin to appreciate anything, the flight to the industrial district felt different this time. Ben transformed into something fast and aerodynamic, keeping pace with Starfire while Robin rode below. The city spread beneath them, lights twinkling in the pre-dawn darkness. 800,000 people sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that their entire reality might be ripped away within the hour. No pressure. They landed at the coordinates Cyborg had provided. An abandoned factory, its windows shattered, and walls tagged with graffiti. Looked like any other condemned building in the district. But Ben's instincts screamed danger. The air tasted wrong. Too still. Too quiet. There. Raven pointed at the factory's center, visible through the broken roof. Space folded in on itself, creating a sphere of twisted geometry that made Ben's eyes hurt. That's the anchor. It's almost ready. Then we break it now. Ben started forward, but Robin's hand caught his arm. "Wait, look closer." Ben did. The distortion pulsed in rhythm like breathing. And around it, reality bent in ways that suggested active manipulation. Trigon wasn't just building an anchor, he was defending it. Traps. Ben recognized the pattern. He knew we'd come. This whole thing's designed to draw us in. Of course it is. Robin's tone carried grim acceptance. But we don't have a choice. We spring the trap and deal with whatever comes. They advanced in formation. Robin and Ben at point starfire and Cyborg covering flanks, Raven at the rear maintaining protective shields. Professional. Disciplined. Everything Ben usually wasn't. He kind of liked it. The factory interior stank of rust and decay. Their footsteps echoed off concrete and steel. The anchor point hung 30 feet above the floor, suspended in violation of every physical law Ben understood. Energy leaked from it in waves, each pulse making reality shudder. Raven. Robin kept his attention on the anchor. "Can you disrupt it from here?" "No, I need to be closer, within 10 feet. Her dark energy coiled around her hands. "But the moment I start the disruption, Trigon will know. He'll respond. Let him." Ben felt his combat instincts take over the familiar cold focus that came before serious fights. "I'll keep him busy." "You can't fight Trigon directly." Raven's warning from earlier. "You'll be corrupted." "I won't fight him." Ben's hand hovered over the Ultimatrix. "I'll just make sure he's too annoyed to notice what you're doing." Robin studied him for 3 seconds, then nodded. "Do it. Everyone else defensive positions. We hold until Raven finishes." The anchor pulsed one final time, then reality tore open. Not gradually. Not with warning. Just instant catastrophic change. The factory disappeared, replaced by something else. Somewhere else. A twisted mirror of Jump City rendered in crimson and shadow. Buildings warped into impossible angles. The sky burned with flames that gave no heat. And in the distance, something massive began to move. Ben's tactical assessment updated automatically. They were in the pocket dimension. Trigon's realm. Fighting on his ground by his rules. Exactly what they'd planned to avoid. "Change of plans." Robin's command cut through rising panic. "Raven, can you seal the anchor from inside?" "Maybe." Raven's uncertainty spoke volumes. "But it'll take longer, and we'll be trapped here until I finish. Then we buy time." Ben slammed his hand down on the Ultimatrix. Green light erupted. His body shifted, bones restructuring and mass increasing exponentially. The transformation felt good. Felt right. Like putting on armor he'd worn 1,000 times before. Ultimate Humongosaur, 20 feet tall, armored in bioorganic plating that could shrug off nuclear weapons. Strength enough to throw mountains. And more importantly, simple. Direct. No fancy powers for Trigon to corrupt, just raw physical dominance. Ben's transformed senses registered movement. The massive shape in the distance resolved into something vaguely humanoid. 4 eyes burning like stars. Skin the color of dried blood. Trigon's avatar manifesting in his own realm. The demon spoke and reality vibrated with each word. "Benjamin Tennyson, the weapon from elsewhere. I wondered when you would reveal yourself fully." Ben's vocal cords, adapted for this form, rumbled in response. "Yeah, hi. Quick question. You always this dramatic, or is the whole evil overlord thing just overcompensation?" Trigon's laugh shook the ground. "You face me with humor. How delightfully futile. Child, I have ended civilizations while you were still learning to walk. Cool story." Ben's massive fists clenched. "But I've got a better one. It's about a kid who kept getting in over his head and somehow kept winning anyway. Want to hear how it ends?" He charged. The distance between them evaporated. Ben's fist backed by enough force to crater a city block connected with Trigon's chest. The impact generated a shockwave that flattened everything within 50 yards. Sound died. light bent. For one perfect moment, Ben felt victory within reach. Then Trigon caught his next punch with one hand. Impressive. The demon's grip tightened. Such strength, such potential, wasted on heroism. Pain lanced up Ben's arm. Not physical, something deeper. The Ultimatrix's energy signature flickered, destabilizing. Trigon was doing something to the transformation itself, reaching into the genetic template and twisting it. Ben tried to pull free. Couldn't. His armor began to crack, dark energy seeping through the gaps. Corruption, cellular level. Exactly what Raven had warned about. Let me show you what you could become. Trigon's 4 eyes blazed. A general in my army. A conqueror of worlds. All that power properly directed. Images flooded Ben's mind. Visions of himself transformed, but changed. Still Humongosaur, but wrong. Twisted. Serving something dark and hungry. The Ultimatrix repurposed as a tool of domination rather than protection. For a fraction of a second, temptation flickered. The visions showed him winning. Victorious. Unstoppable. Everything he'd ever wanted. Then he remembered Jump City sleeping peacefully below. Remembered Starfire's simple friendship. Remembered Robin's grudging respect earned through discipline rather than power. Remembered he'd spent 5 years learning that being strong meant choosing not to dominate. Get out of my head! Ben's free hand slammed the Ultimatrix symbol on his chest. Green light detonated between them. The transformation cycled Humongosaur, dissolving into energy, then reforming as something else. Something faster. Ben became Jet Ray, his Manta Ray form, letting him slip free of Trigon's grip through sheer speed. He flew upward, putting distance between himself and the demon. Below, the Titans held defensive positions around Raven. She'd reached the anchor point, her dark energy weaving complex patterns as she worked the disruption ritual. Trigon's attention shifted. Clever, but you only delay the inevitable. The demon raised one massive hand. Reality rippled. The twisted cityscape began to collapse inward, everything converging on Raven's position. Buildings, streets, the burning sky itself, all of it weaponized against the one person who could stop Trigon's plan. Ben dove. He hit the collapsing debris field at Mach 3. His jet ray forms, neuroshock blasts, carving a path through the cascade. Starfire joined him, her star bolts detonating massive chunks before they could reach Raven. Cyborg's sonic cannon added devastating bass notes to the defensive symphony, but it wasn't enough. Too much mass, too much momentum. The pocket dimension itself was being weaponized. Robin's voice cut through the chaos. Ben, we need a barrier, something big enough to shield Raven. Ben cycled through forms mentally. What could create a barrier on that scale? What transformation could hold back a collapsing reality? The answer came with cold certainty. He needed raw mass and durability. He triggered the transformation. Ultimate Humongosaur again. But this time he wasn't holding back. The Ultimatrix didn't just transform him, it overclocked the template. The form erupted to its full size, 30 feet of armored muscle and concentrated aggression. Raven was right. Every switch was another door. But doors didn't matter if the house was already on fire. Ben planted himself between Raven and the converging destruction, arms spread wide to intercept the avalanche of debris. The first impacts hit like artillery shells. Concrete and steel shattered against his plating. Pain registered, but didn't matter. He'd trained for this, fought in worse conditions. Every muscle in his transformed body locked into defensive stance, creating a living wall. Raven! Robin's shout, barely audible over the destruction. Status! Almost there. Her reply strained. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Ben could do 30 seconds. He'd held worse odds for longer. Buildings crashed into him. shattered roadway, pieces of the twisted sky itself. Each impact drove him back an inch, then two. His feet carved trenches in the ground as he fought for position. The armor cracked in places, green blood seeping through gaps. Not enough. He needed more coverage. Ben slammed the Ultimatrix symbol on his chest, cycling mid-defense. The transformation shifted. Humongousaur dissolved into something wider, lower to the ground. Terraspin. His shell-expanded edges blurring as he began to spin, faster, creating a hurricane wall between Raven and annihilation. The debris hit his wind barrier and deflected, redirected into harmless trajectories. But the pocket dimension kept collapsing, feeding more destruction into the convergence. Ben felt his muscles burn with effort. This form wasn't designed for sustained defense on this scale. Then Trigon's fist punched through the hurricane. No warning, no build-up. Just instant overwhelming force. The blow connected with Ben's shell-dead center. Something cracked. Not the armor. The transformation itself. The genetic template destabilizing under pressure it was never meant to handle. Ben felt himself sliding back toward human form, forced out by sheer damage. In another second, he'd be vulnerable. He hit the Ultimatrix one more time, desperation fueling the choice. The system cycled through available forms, settling on something he rarely used, but desperately needed. NRG. His body dissolved into living radiation contained within an armored shell. The heat he generated could melt through anything. More importantly, this form's containment suit could absorb punishment that would destroy most other aliens. Ben's form blazed, unleashing waves of energy in all directions. Not attacking Trigon directly, just making the space around Raven hostile to anything that got too close. Smaller debris superheated and disintegrated. Larger chunks softened their structural integrity, compromised enough for Starfire's starbolts to shatter them mid-flight. Cyborg's sonic cannon added precision strikes, breaking apart pieces too big for the radiation alone to handle. The coordination happened without discussion. The Titans adapted to Ben's strategy, instantly filling the gaps his power couldn't cover. This was what a real team looked like. Trigon roared reality, shuddering with his fury. Clever insect, but you only delay the inevitable. The demon raised both hands. The entire pocket dimension lurched, space itself warping into new configurations. Gravity reversed in random patches. Up became down, left folded into right. The laws of physics rewrote themselves according to Trigon's will. Ben's NRG form struggled to maintain stability in the chaos. Radiation leaked from containment breaches, burning through his concentration. He could feel the Ultimatrix straining, trying to compensate for environmental conditions that violated every biological principle the device understood. Ben. Starfire's call came from somewhere above or below. Directions had lost meaning. We cannot reach you. The space is breaking. Don't. Ben's radiation-filtered response cut across the distortion. Stay with Raven. I'll handle this. He saw Trigon advancing through the warped reality, each step bending space further. The demon moved with the confidence of something operating on home ground, completely adapted to conditions that were killing Ben. New plan. If he couldn't fight Trigon in this chaos, he'd create different chaos. Ben cycled again. NRG dissolved. His form restructured into something massive and unstable. Armadillo. The transformation completed just as he hit the ground, which had somehow become a wall. Didn't matter. Ben's jackhammer arms activated, slamming into the pocket dimension's foundation with devastating force. Each impact sent shockwaves through the realm's structural lattice, disrupting the patterns Trigon used to maintain control. The demon had built this reality on specific geometric principles. Ben was breaking them, one strike at a time. The warped space flickered, stabilized, flickered again. You dare, Trigon's concentration split between maintaining the dimension and dealing with Ben's assault. Perfect. Ben kept drilling, kept hammering, kept breaking everything he could reach. Not elegant, not tactical, just pure destructive force applied to a reality that was already unstable. Cracks spread through the pocket dimension like breaking glass. Trigon's avatar stumbled, his control slipping. And in that moment of distraction, Raven completed the ritual. Dark energy spiraled into the anchor point, unraveling Trigon's construction from the inside. The pocket dimension began to collapse, not from external pressure, but from its foundation being systematically destroyed. No! Trigon's 4 eyes blazed with rage. This realm is mine, you cannot! Already did. Ben felt the armadillo form beginning to fail, his body approaching its limits. Didn't have to beat you, just had to break your timing. The demon lunged forward, reaching for Ben with hands that could crush mountains. But the pocket dimension's collapse accelerated reality, folding in on itself. Even as the realm cracked, Trigon's presence didn't retreat. It pressed harder, like a hand on the back of your skull. His form began to fragment, pulled back toward whatever hell he'd emerged from. But the weight of his attention remained. This isn't over, weapon. The demon's presence faded. I will return, and when I do, yeah, ominous threats. Looking forward to it. Ben's transformation finally gave out completely. Green light flared one last time. Armadillo dissolved. He fell back into his human form, every muscle screaming. The last thing he saw was Raven's dark energy sphere expanding to cover the Titans, as the pocket dimension collapsed completely. Reality snapped back to normal with a sound like the universe taking a breath. Then exhaustion took him, and darkness followed. He woke to sunlight and pain. The tower's medical bay. Sterile walls, beeping monitors. And Robin sitting in a chair next to the bed, arms crossed, looking like he hadn't slept. Hey. Ben's voice came out hoarse. We win. You cycled through 4 transformations in under 2 minutes. Robin's tone mixed exhaustion with something approaching admiration. Ultimate Humongosaur to take the initial impact. Terraspin for area denial. NRG to create a radiation barrier. Then Armadillo to destabilize the entire pocket dimension from below. That wasn't just power. That was tactical thinking under impossible pressure. Learned the hard way. Ben managed a weak response. Raw strength doesn't solve every problem. Sometimes you need the right tool for the job. You disrupted Trigon's control long enough for Raven to finish the seal. Robin's expression softened fractionally. The pocket dimension is gone. Trigon's anchor is destroyed, and you're the reason we're all still alive. Good. Ben closed his eyes, letting relief wash through him. That's good. Silence stretched between them. Then Robin spoke again, quieter. You could have run. When the dimension started collapsing, used your speed forms to escape while we were trapped. Instead, you stayed. Held Trigon's attention until the end. Yeah, well, Ben managed a weak grin. Wouldn't be much of a hero if I bailed on the people counting on me. Robin didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice carried something Ben had been waiting to hear since arriving in this dimension. Respect. Get some rest. When you're recovered, we need to talk about Slade. About what he's planning to do with those dimensional samples. Robin stood heading for the door. And Ben, thank you for choosing to stand with us. The door closed. Ben let himself relax into the medical bed, every muscle screaming protest. Cycling through ultimates. That heart always left him wrecked. The transformations burned through his body's resources faster than normal forms, and he'd pushed 4 of them past their limits in quick succession. But it had been worth it. He'd earned Robin's trust, proven he could fight smart instead of just fighting hard. And maybe, just maybe, he'd found something he'd been missing since his own universe. A team that had his back, even if that team's leaders still probably had a dozen contingency plans to take him down if necessary. Ben smiled despite the pain. He could live with that. Trust wasn't a gift. It was a debt you paid in blood decisions and the moments you didn't run. And today he'd taken the first real step toward earning it. Robin stood at the tower's observation window and watched Jump City wake up to damage it didn't understand. The sun rose over the industrial district, illuminating streets that looked almost normal. Almost. The buildings stood intact. The fires were out. Emergency crews had cleared the debris during the night. But something felt wrong in a way civilians wouldn't notice, and Robin couldn't stop cataloging. The light bent differently in certain intersections. Shadows fell at angles that violated basic geometry. And if you knew where to look, reality still showed stress fractures where Trigon's pocket dimension had pressed against the real world before collapsing. The city had survived. Barely. And nobody except the Titans knew how close they'd come to waking up in hell. Robin's reflection stared back at him from the window. Dark circles under his eyes. The mask couldn't hide exhaustion anymore. His hand shook slightly as he reached for the console. 3 days of analysis and planning. The coffee had stopped working hours ago. Behind him, the command center hummed with activity. Cyborg ran diagnostics on every system that had glitched during the dimensional overlap. Starfire coordinated with emergency services, her cheerful tone not quite masking the strain. Beast Boy maintained surveillance feeds quieter than usual. Raven was meditating. Had been for 6 hours straight. Robin had checked on her twice. Both times she'd opened her eyes just long enough to say she was fine before retreating back into whatever internal battle kept her isolated. And Ben slept in the medical bay, still unconscious. 48 hours since the pocket dimension collapsed. Cyborg said the readings were stable. Normal recovery from extreme transformation cycling. Nothing to worry about. Robin worried anyway. You should eat something. Starfire's voice came from his left. She'd approached silently, carrying a tray with food Robin wouldn't touch. You have not rested since the battle concluded. I'll rest when we understand what happened. Robin didn't look away from the window. We contained Trigon, destroyed his anchor, won, but it doesn't feel like winning, because victory carried a price. Starfire set the tray down on the console. This is the nature of our work. We protect, but protection demands sacrifice. What did we sacrifice? Robin finally turned to face her. Nobody died. The city's intact. We stopped Trigon before he could swap realities. By every metric, this was a clean operation. Yet you stand here watching shadows that should not exist. Starfire's green eyes held understanding. And you have rewritten our emergency protocols 5 times since dawn. You do not celebrate victory. You prepare for the next crisis. Robin wanted to argue. Couldn't. She was right. Ben used 4 ultimate transformations in under 3 minutes. The words came out flat. Clinical. Cycled through combat forms faster than our sensors could track. Generated enough force to destabilize a pocket dimension. And Trigon touched the Ultimatrix directly. Tried to corrupt it, but failed. Starfire's tone stayed gentle. Ben resisted, fought smart instead of simply fighting hard. He proved himself trustworthy. Did he? Robin pulled up holographic data. Or did we just get lucky that Trigon didn't have enough time to finish what he started? Raven warned us. Every transformation is a potential infection vector. Every alien Ben accesses becomes something Trigon could corrupt. The displays showed energy readings from the battle. Spikes and valleys Robin had been analyzing for 2 days straight, looking for patterns, weaknesses, points of failure. Preparation. That's what Batman had taught him. Always prepare for the worst-case scenario. Even when the worst case was someone on your team, you are afraid. Starfire said it simply, not an accusation, just observation. Not of Ben, of what he could become. Wouldn't you be? Robin gestured at the data. We're housing a walking weapons platform powerful enough to fight demon lords. A teenager from another dimension who we know almost nothing about except that he's cooperative right now. What happens when circumstances change? When he decides our methods aren't fast enough, when someone else gets their hands on that technology, then we will address those circumstances when they arise. Starfire moved closer. But we cannot protect people by living in fear of possibilities. That path leads only to isolation and suspicion. Robin thought about Protocol Omega, the file buried deep in his encrypted systems. The contingency plan he'd started writing the moment Ben arrived and kept updating after every encounter. What to do if Ben Tennyson became the threat instead of the ally? The plan was still incomplete. Robin didn't know enough about the Ultimatrix's vulnerabilities, didn't have reliable data on transformation limits or override sequences. But he was learning, watching, building the framework for a response he prayed he'd never need to implement. "I'm not afraid of Ben." Robin said it quietly. "I'm afraid of being too late." Again. Starfire's expression softened. She knew what he meant. They all did. The Titans had faced too many threats that escalated faster than they could respond, lost too many battles in the opening moves because Robin had trusted when he should have verified. Trust was important, but so was caution. The balance between them kept Robin awake at night. The damage reports came in. Cyborg's announcement cut across their conversation. Cities calling it a localized seismic event, gas line explosions, structural failures from old foundations. They're buying the cover story. "Any casualties?" Robin asked. "Injuries. Nothing life-threatening. We got everyone clear before the pocket fully manifested." Cyborg's human eye met Robin's. "We did good, man. You can let yourself believe that." Could he? Robin looked at the data again. The stress fractures in reality. The energy signatures that still hadn't fully dissipated. Evidence of a battle that had threatened to replace Jump City with a demonic hellscape. They'd won. But winning had required Ben operating at a level that terrified Robin in its implications. "What's our status on Slade?" Robin changed the subject. Easier to focus on concrete threats than abstract fears. "Gone." Cyborg pulled up tracking data. Collected his dimensional samples and vanished. No hits on any surveillance grid. No electronic signature. Guy's a ghost. "He's not a ghost." Robin studied the last known location. "He's being careful. Which means whatever he's planning with those samples, it's important enough to hide from us completely." "You think it connects to Trigon?" Beast Boy had wandered over, abandoning his monitoring station. Like, are they working together? Or is Slade just being an opportunistic jerk? "Both." Raven's voice came from the doorway. She looked drained, her pale skin almost translucent. "Trigon uses people. Lets them think they're independent operators while manipulating events toward his goals. Slade believes he's in control. He's wrong." "Did you sense something?" Robin's tactical focus sharpened. "During the battle after?" "During, yes." Trigon learned from the encounter. Raven moved to the center of the room, her presence making the lights flicker slightly. He tested Ben's limits, probed the Ultimatrix's structure, and while we were focused on survival, my father was gathering intelligence. The temperature dropped 3 degrees. Robin felt it in his bones. That cold awareness that the victory they'd celebrated was just the opening move in a longer game. "Intelligence on what?" Robin asked, though he already knew the answer. "How to break Ben." Raven's violet eyes held certainty. Trigon doesn't need to defeat him directly. He just needs to understand the mechanism, find the right pressure point. And when the moment comes, he'll use Ben against us. Silence settled over the command center. Not comfortable. Heavy with implications nobody wanted to voice. Starfire broke it first. "Then we ensure such a moment never arrives. We protect Ben as we protect each other, through trust and vigilance." "That's not enough." Robin's response came out harsher than intended. Trust doesn't stop corruption. Vigilance doesn't prevent manipulation. We need countermeasures, protocols, ways to contain the situation if Ben becomes compromised. You mean if he becomes a threat? Beast Boy's tone carried an edge. Dude, he just helped us stop a demon invasion. Maybe give him like 5 minutes before planning how to take him down. I'm not planning to take him down. Robin's frustration bled through. I'm planning to save him. There's a difference. Is there? Raven's question cut deep. Because from where I'm standing, your protocols look a lot like distrust wearing a tactical uniform. Robin wanted to argue. To explain that preparation wasn't the same as suspicion. That a good leader planned for every contingency, even the ones that hurt to consider. But the words stuck in his throat because Raven was right. He was afraid. And fear was making him think like Batman. Cold, clinical, reducing people to variables in an equation where the only acceptable solution was absolute control. I don't want to be this person. The admission came out quiet. Raw. I don't want to look at someone who fought beside us and see a potential threat first. But I can't stop. Because if I don't prepare, if I don't plan, and something goes wrong, that's on me. That's my responsibility. No. Starfire's hand found his shoulder. That is on all of us. We are a team. We share the burden of these decisions. You do not carry this weight alone. The door to the medical bay opened. Ben emerged, moving slowly but under his own power. He looked terrible, pale, unsteady, but conscious. Hey. Ben's attempt at his usual grin fell flat. Did we win? Please tell me we won, because I feel like I got hit by a planet. We won. Robin's response came automatic. Professional. How are you feeling? Like cycling through ultimates at combat speed was a really bad idea. Ben made it to a chair, collapsing into it with obvious relief. But alive. So that's something. The team gathered around him. Starfire asking questions about pain levels, Cyborg running medical scans, Beast Boy cracking jokes that got weak laughs. Normal team dynamics resuming after crisis. Robin watched from slightly apart, observing, analyzing, still seeing variables and threat assessments. Ben's eyes found his, held steady despite the exhaustion. We need to talk. Ben said it quietly. About what happens if I can't control it next time. The room went still. Everyone heard. Everyone understood what he was asking. I felt Trigon in my head. Ben continued, his casual demeanor completely gone. Felt him touching the Ultimatrix, trying to twist it. And for about 3 seconds, I wasn't sure I could stop him. So I need to know. If that happens again, if I lose control or get corrupted or whatever, what's the plan? Robin's throat felt tight. This was the conversation he'd been dreading. The one that forced him to voice contingencies that felt like betrayal just thinking about them. We have protocols. Robin kept his tone neutral. For any team member who becomes compromised. Containment first, extraction if possible, neutralization if necessary. Neutralization. Ben repeated the word. That's a nice way of saying you'll stop me by any means necessary. Yes, no hesitation, no softening the truth. Ben had asked for honesty. Robin gave it. Good. Ben's response surprised everyone. Because if Trigon gets his hooks in me for real, if he turns the Ultimatrix into a weapon against you, I'd rather you put me down than let that happen. Ben, no. Starfire's protest came immediate. We would never. You would. Ben cut her off gently. You should. I've seen what happens when people with power lose control. Seen the body count. I'm not arrogant enough to think I'm immune just because I'm trying to do the right thing. He looked at Robin again. So yeah, make your plans, build your protocols, and if the day comes when you need to use them, don't hesitate. Don't give me a chance to hurt people because you're hoping I'll snap out of it. Just do what needs to be done. The weight of that permission settled over Robin like armor. Not comforting, but necessary. Understood? Robin said it formally, making it official. But we're also going to work on prevention. Raven, I need you teaching Ben everything you know about resisting demonic corruption. Cyborg, research the Ultimatrix's architecture. Find weaknesses we can exploit if needed. Starfire, Beast Boy, standard support protocols. And you? Raven asked. I'm finishing Protocol Omega. Robin met her eyes. Because Ben's right. If the worst happens, hesitation gets people killed, and I won't let that happen to this team. Nobody argued. The reality of what they faced didn't allow for comfort or easy answers. One more thing. Robin pulled up the tracking data on Slade. The samples he stole. We need to recover them before he can weaponize the technology. That's priority one. You think he can replicate the Ultimatrix on? Cyborg's skepticism showed. That's alien tech centuries beyond anything on Earth. I think Slade has resources we don't understand and motivations we can't predict. Robin closed the displays, and I think we can't afford to assume he'll fail. The team dispersed to their assigned tasks. Preparing, planning, doing what they did best, even when exhausted. Robin returned to his console, pulled up Protocol Omega, the incomplete contingency plan that felt like poison, just writing. Status incomplete. Variables unresolved. Critical gaps in transformation override sequences. Ultimatrix architecture still largely unknown. Every line he added felt like betrayal. Every scenario he mapped felt like giving up on someone who'd fought beside them. But Ben was right about one thing. If the day came when power turned against them, Robin needed to be ready. Needed to have answers that didn't rely on hope or trust or the belief that good intentions could overcome corruption, because Trigon didn't play fair. Slade didn't fight honorably. And the threats they faced didn't care about the weight of moral compromise. Robin typed steadily. Building plans he prayed would never leave the encrypted files. Preparing for a worst case that kept him awake in the dark hours before dawn. Outside the window, Jump City continued its morning routine. People going to work, living their lives, protected by heroes who carried the weight of impossible choices. Robin watched the shadows fall at wrong angles and kept writing, because that's what leaders did, even when it hurt. Especially then, Robin watched the simulation run for the third time. On the holographic display, Jump City burned. Not from Trigon, not from Slade. From Ben Tennyson losing control in the middle of downtown during rush hour. The simulation's parameters were conservative. Only 30% corruption rate. Only partial Ultimatrix override. Only 5 minutes before theoretical containment. The casualty estimate still exceeded 4,000. Run it again. Robin's command came out flat. Increase corruption to 50%. Decrease response time by 2 minutes. Cyborg's human eye found him in the dim command center. Man, we've been running this for 6 hours. The numbers don't get better just because you keep asking. They get more accurate. Robin pulled up another variable set. Trigon touched the Ultimatrix directly. We saw him attempt corruption. We need to know what happens if he succeeds. And then what? Cyborg leaned back in his chair, metal joints creaking. We've got theoretical data on a worst-case scenario. What are you planning to do with it? Robin didn't answer immediately. On the screen simulation, Ben tore through the financial district in a form Robin didn't recognize. The algorithm couldn't predict exact transformations, so it generated composite threats based on observed capabilities. The result looked like something from a nightmare. Protocol Omega sat open on his secondary monitor. Still incomplete, but less incomplete than yesterday. I'm planning to be ready. Robin said it quietly. That's what leaders do. Leaders also trust their team. Cyborg's tone carried no accusation, just observation. And Ben's part of that team now, whether we planned it or not. For how long? Robin closed the simulation, unable to watch it loop again. He's from another dimension, another reality. Eventually, he'll find a way home, or someone will find a way to send him back. And when that happens, what do we really know about him except that he's powerful and cooperative as long as circumstances align? You're talking like he's a threat we're managing instead of a person we're working with. I'm talking like someone who's seen how fast cooperation becomes confrontation when stakes change. Robin pulled up reports from the last few days. Sensor data, energy readings, behavioral patterns, all meticulously documented, all feeding into contingency plans that felt increasingly necessary. We've faced mind control, possession, corruption. How many times have we fought teammates who got turned against us? And how many times did we get them back by planning to take them down? Cyborg's question hung in the air. Robin, I get it. You're scared. We all are. But there's a difference between preparation and paranoia. Where's the line? Robin met his eyes. Because from where I'm sitting, preparation looks exactly like paranoia until the moment it saves lives. Cyborg opened his mouth, closed it, shook his head slowly. I don't know, man. But I know when you asked me to run these simulations, you said it was for general threat assessment. You didn't mention we'd be modeling Ben specifically. Does it matter the Ultimatrix is the most significant power variable in Jump City right now? Of course, we need to understand it. Understanding and planning countermeasures aren't the same thing. Cyborg stood his height, suddenly imposing in the dim light. And you know what really worries me? You're not even trying to hide it anymore. Yesterday, you had me install additional sensors in the training room. The day before, you asked Raven to map potential magical interference patterns with alien technology. You're building something, and you're doing it without telling Ben. He gave permission. Robin's defense came automatic. He asked what happens if he loses control. This is the answer. No. He asked what the plan was. He didn't ask you to treat him like a weapon that might go off. Cyborg moved toward the elevator. I'll keep running your simulations, because you're right, we need data. But Robin, at some point you're going to have to decide if you're protecting the city from Ben or protecting Ben from what might happen. Because the way you're going, you won't be doing either. The elevator doors closed. Robin sat alone in the command center, surrounded by screens showing threats that didn't exist yet. The training room sensors fed him real-time data. Ben was down there now, working through basic forms with Starfire. Not combat training, just demonstration, showing her different aliens, explaining their capabilities in that casual way he had that made godlike power sound like party tricks. Robin pulled up the feed, audio only. He told himself it was for documentation purposes, and this one's Arctiguana. Pretty straightforward. Ice breath, cold resistance can freeze most things solid in about 3 seconds. Ben's voice carried easy confidence. Not my favorite for combat, but great for rescue work. Frozen structures are stable structures. You have considered rescue applications for each transformation. Starfire's question held genuine interest. This is very thoughtful. Had to learn the hard way. When you're powerful enough to solve problems by hitting them, you forget there are better solutions. A pause. Took me a while to figure out that being the biggest gun in the room doesn't make you the most useful. Robin's hand hovered over the control panel. The new sensors he'd installed could do more than monitor. With the right calibration, they could generate interference patterns, disrupt transformation sequences. Not permanently, just long enough to create an opening for containment, just long enough to prove the concept worked. His finger moved toward the activation key. Stopped. This was the line Cyborg had asked about. Right here. The moment where preparation crossed into something else. something that required secrecy and justification, and the kind of thinking that kept Robin awake at 3 in the morning, wondering when he'd become the kind of person who tested countermeasures on allies without permission. He pulled his hand back. Not yet. Not like this. But the fact that he'd considered it at all sat heavy in his chest. The command center door opened. Raven entered without announcement, her presence making the shadows deepen slightly. She looked at the screens, at the paused simulation, at Robin's expression. "You're doing it again." Her tone held no judgment, just tired recognition. Doing what? Trying to control something that can't be controlled by treating it like a tactical problem. Raven moved to stand beside him, her violet eyes scanning the data. "I can feel it. The weight you're carrying. It's getting heavier." "Because the threat's getting clearer." Robin gestured at the simulation. "Trigon learned from our last encounter. He knows how to target Ben now. And we're sitting here hoping friendship and good intentions will be enough when he comes back. No, we're sitting here building our strength, learning to work together, preparing in ways that don't require treating Ben like a bomb that might detonate." Raven's gaze stayed on the screens. "I know what it's like to be the threat everyone's afraid of, to see people calculating how to stop you even while they're smiling. It doesn't make you fight harder to protect them. It makes you wonder why you're trying at all." The words hit harder than Robin wanted to acknowledge. "You're saying I'm pushing him away. I'm saying you're building walls and calling them safety measures." Raven turned to face him fully. "And Trigon is very good at exploiting walls. They isolate. They separate. They make people feel alone, even when surrounded by teammates. So what do you suggest? We just trust and hope?" The frustration bled through. "That's not a strategy. That's faith. And faith doesn't stop demon lords." "No, but neither does paranoia." Raven's hand moved in a small gesture, and the simulation vanished from the main display. "You want to know the real danger? It's not Ben losing control. It's you making him feel like he has to prove he won't. Because the moment that happens, the moment he starts doubting himself, or pulling back or trying to earn trust he already gave, that's when Trigon can slip in. Not through power. Through the cracks we create ourselves." Robin wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that preparation wasn't paranoia, that contingencies weren't betrayal, that leaders had to make hard choices that felt wrong but were necessary. But Raven's expression stopped him. She knew all those arguments, had heard them before. Probably from herself back when she'd been the one everyone feared. "Protocol Omega stays." Robin said it firmly. "We need fail-safes. But I'll be more careful about how we implement them, more transparent." "Will you?" Raven's question wasn't challenging, just sad. "Because from what Cyborg told me, you've been running scenarios and installing equipment for days without mentioning it to Ben. That's not preparation. That's suspicion wearing a tactical uniform." She'd used almost the exact same phrase before. Robin remembered. Back when he'd first started drafting the protocols. Back when he'd convinced himself it was just prudent planning. How much had changed in 3 days? Or had nothing changed except his willingness to admit what he was doing? "I don't know how to do this." The admission came out quieter than he intended. "I don't know how to balance trust and responsibility when the cost of getting it wrong is measured in thousands of lives." Batman would know. He'd have contingencies for contingencies. But I'm not him. I don't want to be him. And I'm terrified that trying not to become him is going to get people killed. Raven's expression softened slightly. Batman works alone for a reason. He doesn't have to balance trust because he doesn't give it. You do. That's not a weakness. That's what makes you a better leader than he'll ever be. Even if that trust is misplaced. Even then. Because the alternative is becoming exactly what you're afraid of. Raven moved toward the door, then paused. Ben knows something's wrong. He hasn't said anything, but he feels it. The way you look at him when you think he's not paying attention. The way conversations stop when he enters rooms. He's giving you space to work through whatever you need to work through, but that space isn't infinite. She left Robin alone with that knowledge. He pulled up the training room feed again. Ben and Starfire had moved on to flying forms. Ben as Jet Tray, swooping through obstacle courses, while Starfire offered encouragement and technique suggestions. Easy partnership. Natural teamwork. And Robin was sitting in a dark room running simulations on how to shut it all down. His communicator buzzed. Cyborg's voice came through terse. "Got something. You need to see this now." Robin reached the lab in under a minute. Cyborg had pulled up surveillance footage from the warehouse district. The same area where they'd fought Slade. Where the dimensional samples had been stolen. "What am I looking at?" Robin studied the feed. Reality distortion. Small scale. Lasted about 15 seconds before collapsing. Cyborg enhanced the image. But look at the signature. It's not Trigon. It's not natural dimensional drift. It's manufactured. Robin's blood went cold. Slade's using the samples. Not just using. Testing. This was controlled, deliberate. Like he's trying to replicate something specific about Ben's arrival portal. Cyborg pulled up comparative analysis. And he's getting better. This distortion was 30% more stable than the last one. When was the last one? Yesterday. And the day before that. He's been running experiments for at least 72 hours. Cyborg met Robin's eyes. Whatever he's building, it's progressing fast. Robin's mind raced through implications. Slade with portal technology. Slade with the ability to manipulate dimensional barriers. Slade with access to whatever lay beyond reality's normal boundaries. We need to stop him before he finalizes whatever he's working on. Robin pulled up tactical maps. If he can open stable portals, he could bring through anything. Cyborg finished the thought. Or send anything away, including us. The training room sensors pinged. Ben's energy signatures spiked briefly as he cycled to a different form. The new monitoring systems Robin had installed tracked every fluctuation, documented every transformation, built a database that could theoretically be used to predict and counter, could also be used to protect, to understand, to help. Robin stared at the dual feeds. Slade's experiments, Ben's training, two separate threats, or one complex situation being viewed from the wrong angle. Call everyone in. Robin made the decision. Full briefing, everything we know about Slade's progress, everything we've learned about dimensional technology, including the simulations. Cyborg's question carried weight. Robin hesitated. This was the moment. Full transparency meant admitting he'd been running worst-case scenarios on Ben. Meant revealing the extent of Protocol Omega. Meant acknowledging that preparation had crossed lines. But keeping secrets had gotten them nowhere, except isolated and suspicious, including the simulations, Robin confirmed. Ben deserves to know what we're preparing for, all of it. Cyborg's expression shifted. Not quite approval, but something close. That's the right call. We'll see. Robin headed for the comm system. Assemble in 10 minutes, priority briefing, and Cyborg. Thank you. For pushing back, for making me think about what I was doing. That's what teams do. Cyborg's tone carried relief. We keep each other honest. Robin triggered the alert. Watched the acknowledgements come in, one by one. Starfire. Beast Boy. Raven. And finally, Ben, his response showing mild confusion but immediate compliance. In 10 minutes, Robin would have to stand in front of people who trusted him and explain that he'd been treating one of them like a potential threat. Would have to present data that looked damning even with context. Would have to hope that honesty could repair what secrecy had damaged. But at least he'd be trying. At least he'd be choosing trust over control, even when control felt safer. even when trust felt impossible. The command center felt colder than usual. Or maybe that was just Robin's awareness of what he was about to do. Outside the window, Jump City continued its morning routine, protected by heroes who were human enough to make mistakes. Robin just hoped this particular mistake could be fixed before it became something worse, before the breaking point snapped into something irreparable. The 10-minute timer counted down. Robin pulled up the full presentation. Simulations, sensor data, Protocol Omega's current status, and waited for his team to arrive so he could show them exactly how close he'd come to crossing a line he might not have been able to walk back from. Trust was earned through action. Time to find out if honesty could earn it back. Raven felt it the moment Robin started the briefing, not the words themselves, not the data or simulations or careful explanations. The emotional resonance underneath. Robin's guilt, Ben's controlled hurt, the team's fracturing cohesion creating pressure points in the tower's ambient energy. And beneath it all, deeper and colder, her father's attention sharpening. She sat in her meditation chamber, legs crossed, hands folded in her lap. The briefing was happening 2 floors below. She'd excused herself after the first 5 minutes, citing the need to monitor for demonic influence. Not entirely a lie, but also not the full truth. The full truth was that staying in that room, feeling everyone's emotions crash against each other, like waves would have made her lose control. And control was the only thing keeping Triggan's presence at bay. Her father was patient, always had been. He could wait centuries for the right moment, the right crack in someone's armor, the right weakness to exploit. And right now, watching the Titans fracture from the inside, Triggan was closer than he'd been since the pocket dimension collapsed. Raven's empathic senses stretched through the tower. Robin's guilt spiked as he showed the simulation. The one where Ben lost control, where Jump City burned. Ben's emotional signature went very still. Not angry, not hurt in the explosive way, just distant, pulling back into himself the way Raven did when the world became too much. Starfire's distress created bright flares. Cyborg's frustration rumbled like distant thunder. Beast Boy's confusion twisted into something approaching hurt. And underneath it all, reality itself felt thinner, like pressure building against glass. "You're watching?" Raven spoke to the empty chamber. "Enjoying this?" Silence answered. But silence that felt occupied, heavy with attention. "I won't let you use them." Raven's meditation deepened her consciousness, spreading through layers of reality most people never perceived. Whatever you're planning, whatever convergence you're engineering, it won't work. Her father's presence pressed closer. Not manifesting, not attacking, just observing with the patience of something that had consumed dimensions and would consume more. Then Raven felt it, a spike in dimensional energy from the warehouse district. The same signature Cyborg had detected in Slade's experiments, but stronger, more stable, and moving. Her eyes snapped open. This wasn't a test anymore. Raven materialized in the briefing room through a portal of dark energy. The team looked up, Robin's presentation frozen mid-sentence. Slade's activating something. Raven's tone cut through the tension. Major dimensional distortion, warehouse district, now. The briefing's emotional weight evaporated, replaced by immediate tactical focus. Whatever fractures had been forming, they were shoved aside by training and necessity. "Battle positions." Robin's command came automatic. "Raven, can you tell what he's opening?" "Not opening, anchoring." Raven pulled up her own scans, dark energy forming holographic displays. "He's creating a stable dimensional bridge. If he completes it, he can bring through anything." Ben stood his exhaustion from the briefings suddenly irrelevant. "Or send anything anywhere, including us. Then we stop him before he finishes." Robin moved toward the exit, the team following. "Standard assault formation. Raven, you're our early warning for dimensional threats. Ben," Robin paused. Everyone felt it. The weight of what he'd just revealed. The simulations, the protocols, the admission that he'd been preparing to stop Ben if necessary. Ben met his eyes. "You need me on this." Not a question, not a demand. Just acknowledgement of tactical reality. "Yes." Robin said it clearly. "I need you on this. We all do." The moment stretched. Then Ben nodded once and transformed. Jet ray. Fast and maneuverable. The same form he'd used during training with Starfire. They moved. Raven teleported them in groups, her dark energy wrapping around teammates and folding space. The warehouse district materialized around them in fragments. Starfire and Robin first, then Cyborg and Beast Boy. Finally Ben, his transformed state making the dimensional transition harder. The anchor point blazed like a wound in reality. Slade stood before it, one hand extended, his armor glowing with stolen dimensional energy. Around him, reality warped. Buildings phased in and out of solidity. The sky flickered between day and night. Raven's empathic senses caught something wrong immediately. The portal's energy signature harmonized with something familiar. Something she'd felt every time Ben transformed. The Ultimatrix's unique frequency woven into the dimensional tear like a homing beacon. And through the distortion, something massive moved. Raven's empathic senses recoiled. Whatever existed on the other side of that portal carried a psychic weight that made her father's presence feel small by comparison. "Titans." Slade's voice carried perfect calm despite the dimensional chaos. "Right on schedule. I was wondering how long it would take you to notice." "Shut it down, Slade." Robin's birdarang was already in hand. "Whatever you're bringing through, it's not worth the cost." "Cost?" Slade tilted his head. "I'm not bringing anything through, Robin. I'm collecting an address." His attention shifted to Ben. "Your arrival left such interesting residue. Energy signatures, dimensional coordinates, the Ultimatrix's unique resonance pattern. I simply needed you close enough to the portal to complete the mapping." Raven's empathic senses flared warning. The portal wasn't just anchored to Ben's energy signature. It was actively scanning him, recording, learning. The portal pulsed. The thing on the other side pressed closer. Raven felt its attention turned toward them. Ancient, hungry, and completely wrong for this dimension. "Robin?" Raven's warning came urgent. "We need to close that now. What's coming through?" "We'll make all our current conflicts seem quaint," Slade finished. "Yes, that's rather the point." He triggered something in his gauntlet. The portal expanded violently, and Trigon's presence exploded through the dimensional barrier. Not his physical form, not his avatar. Just his will, his consciousness, his absolute certainty that everything here already belonged to him. Raven's defenses shattered. Her meditation training, her emotional control, her carefully maintained barriers, all of it dissolved under the weight of her father's direct attention. She felt him in her head, in her soul, in the parts of herself she'd spent years trying to wall off. "Daughter." The word reverberated through every layer of Raven's being. Not spoken. Imposed. "Did you truly think you could resist? That your friends could protect you? That this boy with his stolen power could stand against what I am?" Raven fell to her knees, dark energy crackling uncontrolled around her. She felt her teammates react. Starfire moving to shield her. Cyborg scanning for threats. Beast Boy transforming into something large and protective. And Ben. Ben, whose jet ray form dissolved back to human as he approached her carefully. "Raven." His voice cut through Trigon's presence somehow. Young, mortal, completely outmatched. "Stay with us. Don't let him in." "The weapon speaks." Trigon's attention shifted toward Ben. "How fascinating. You carry such potential, such power, and you waste it on heroism, on limitation, on the pretense that strength should be restrained." Asterisk. Get out of her head. Ben's hand found Raven's shoulder. The touch grounded her somehow. Human contact. Simple. Real. Or what child you'll transform into something impressive? You'll threaten me with force. Trigon's presence in Raven's mind carried amusement. I've already learned what you are. Studied your device. Mapped your limitations. You cannot harm me. But you could serve me so beautifully. The portal flared brighter. The thing on the other side began to push through. Not Trigon himself. Something else. Something Slade had bargained for, or summoned or stolen from whatever hell dimension he'd accessed. Raven's empathic senses screamed. The entity was wrong, fundamentally incompatible with their reality. If it fully manifested, the dimensional damage would be catastrophic. Raven. Robin's command cut through the chaos. Can you close it? Raven's voice came out strangled. Trigon's presence in her mind made focusing nearly impossible. I can try, but I need time. Then we buy you time. Robin's tactical mind shifted gears instantly. Titan's defensive formation around Raven. Keep Slade and whatever's coming through away from her, Ben. Ben was already moving. His hands slammed down on the Ultimatrix, green light erupting as he transformed. Not into something massive or overwhelming. Into Ultimate Humongosaur, the same form he'd used against Trigon before. But this time Raven could feel the difference. Ben wasn't trying to overpower. He was trying to endure. To buy time exactly as Robin had asked. The entity pushed through the portal fully. Raven's mind recoiled from trying to process its form. It looked like a fracture, given life a humanoid shape composed entirely of reality's broken edges. Where its limbs should be solid, Raven saw cracks spreading through space itself. Each movement propagated more fractures, reality splintering around it like glass under pressure. Through the dimensional distortion, Raven felt Ben's agony like needles in her own nerves. The fracture thing's claws, edges of broken reality sharper than any physical blade, had pierced his armored form in 3 places. Felt the Ultimatrix struggling its alien technology, screaming in frequencies only her empathic senses could detect. But Ben held the line anyway. Starfire's starbolts joined the assault, ultraviolet energy burning against the entity's shifting form. Cyborg's sonic cannon added bass notes that disrupted dimensional stability. Beast Boy shifted through rapid-fire transformations, each one testing different approaches, and Robin directed it all with precise commands, turning individual efforts into coordinated strategy. Raven focused on the portal. Her dark energy reached into the dimensional tear, finding the edges Slade had forced open. Her father's presence pressed harder, trying to distract her, trying to break her concentration. You cannot close what I have opened, daughter. Your friend's loyalty is admirable, but meaningless against inevitability. Shut up. Raven's hands moved through complex patterns, weaving her soul self into a sealing matrix. You're not inevitable. You're just patient, and patience has limits. The portal resisted. Slade had anchored it with stolen technology and dimensional samples. But those samples came from Ben's arrival, which meant they carried echoes of the Ultimatrix's signature. Raven's empathic senses found the pattern, found the resonance, and realized what Trigon had actually been planning. Robin. Her warning came desperate. The portal's keyed to Ben's energy signature. Trigon isn't trying to bring something through, he's trying to pull Ben in. The entity attacking them wasn't the threat. It was the distraction. Robin's tactical assessment updated instantly. Ben, fall back. Get away from the portal. But Ben was locked in combat with the entity. Its reality-warping claws had pierced his armor in 3 places. If he disengaged now, it would tear through the Titan's defensive line. Raven saw the choice forming in Ben's expression. Tactical withdrawal versus holding position. Personal safety versus team safety. The same choice Robin had been afraid Ben would make wrong. Ben chose. He didn't retreat. Instead, he slammed the Ultimatrix symbol on his chest, cycling transformations mid-combat. Ultimate Humongosaur dissolved. For a fraction of a second, Ben existed in human form, vulnerable. Then Armadillo erupted into being. The jackhammer arms that had destabilized Trigon's pocket dimension drove into the ground beneath the portal. Seismic shockwaves propagated through the dimensional anchor's foundation, disrupting the stolen technology's resonance. Raven felt the portal's stability fracture. Not collapse. Not yet. But weakening. Now Raven, Robin's command. She poured everything into the ceiling. Dark energy wrapped around the dimensional tear, pulling edges toward each other. The entity on this side thrashed, trying to return to its home dimension before being trapped. Ben's seismic assault intensified. The Ultimatrix burned bright, operating past safe parameters. Raven felt the device's strain through the dimensional connection. Felt Ben's exhaustion. Felt the moment where pushing harder might break something fundamental. "Ben, that's enough." Robin's voice cut through the chaos. "Pull back before you burn out." Ben hesitated. 1 second. 2. The tactical calculation visible even through his transformed state. Then he stopped. Transformation dissolved. Ben collapsed to one knee, breathing hard, the Ultimatrix flickering unstable warnings. The entity lunged for the portal, desperate to escape. Starfire intercepted with a point-blank starbolt barrage that burned through dimensional flesh. The entity screamed in frequencies that shattered glass and made reality ripple. And in that moment of distraction, Raven closed the portal. The dimensional tear sealed like a wound, finally scabbing over. The fracture entity's scream cut off mid-note as it was severed from its home dimension, then began to destabilize. Without the portal sustaining it, it couldn't maintain coherence in this reality. It dissolved into nothing, leaving only scorched pavement and the smell of ozone. Slade was gone, of course. Escape routes prepared, always. But his dimensional anchor lay shattered, the stolen technology smoking ruins. Raven's empathic senses finally blessedly found silence. Trigon's presence withdrew his attempt to capture Ben through the portal, failed. For now, she collapsed. Starfire caught her before she hit the ground. Around them, the Titans regrouped, battered, exhausted, but alive. Robin approached Ben, who was still kneeling, the Ultimatrix displaying error codes in languages Robin couldn't read. "You could have run." Robin said it quietly. "When I told you to fall back, you could have saved yourself." "No." Ben looked up, meeting Robin's eyes. "I couldn't. Not if it meant leaving you guys exposed. That's not what teams do." The weight of the earlier briefing hung between them. The simulations, the protocols, the admission that Robin had been preparing to stop Ben if necessary. "I'm sorry." Robin's voice cracked slightly. 3 days without sleep catching up. "For treating you like..." His legs gave out. Not dramatically. Just the slow buckle of exhaustion, finally overwhelming adrenaline. Starfire caught him before he hit the ground, her concern radiating bright enough that even non-empaths could feel it. "Robin requires rest." Her tone allowed no argument. "As do all of us. This conversation can wait." "No." Robin forced himself upright through sheer will. "Ben deserves..." "I know what I deserve." Ben's interruption came quiet, hard. "And what you were preparing to do, the simulations, the sensors..." He paused. "I get it, I do. But don't ever do that behind my back again. If you need contingencies, we build them together. Or we don't build them at all. Not forgiveness, not absolution, just terms." Robin met his eyes, nodded once. Agreed. The word hung there, not reconciliation, not trust rebuilt. Just the foundation to maybe start rebuilding. "Good." Ben tried to stand, failed. The Ultimatrix was still flickering warnings. "Because right now I can barely walk, and I'm pretty sure Cyborg's going to yell at both of us for pushing too hard." "All of you pushed too hard?" Cyborg's practical observation. Medical scans. Tower. Now, we can debrief after nobody's about to collapse. Raven felt the emotional landscape shift. Not healed, not perfect, but no longer fracturing. Trigon's not done. She spoke quietly. Everyone heard. He learned from this too. Learned that we work better together than he anticipated, which means next time we'll be ready. Robin's tone carried certainty. As a team. No more secrets. No more simulations running in the background. We face whatever comes together. He looked at Ben. That includes Protocol Omega. If you want to see it help refine it, make sure it's something we can both live with. It's yours. No more treating you like a variable to manage. Ben considered that. Then nodded. Okay. But same goes for the Ultimatrix. Cyborg Raven, you want to study it, understand how it works, find vulnerabilities we can exploit. If Trigon tries this again, I'm in. Full transparency. Raven felt it then. The shift from fracture to foundation. Not trust earned through combat. Trust built through honesty after mistakes. It wouldn't last forever. Trigon would find new approaches. Slade would rebuild his plans. And the fundamental tensions between power and control, between trust and preparation, would always exist. But for now, in this moment, the Titans stood together. And that Raven knew from experience was worth more than any amount of individual strength. We should get back to the tower. Cyborg's practical observation. Run medical scans. Make sure nobody's about to collapse from dimensional poisoning or exhaustion. And debrief, Robin added. Full team debrief, everything we learned, everything we need to adjust going forward. They moved as a unit. Battered, but functional. Raven teleported them in groups again this time, feeling the cohesion instead of fractures. As the warehouse district faded from view, she caught one last sense of her father's presence. Distant now. Observing. Calculating his next move. But also, she thought, perhaps surprised. Trigon had expected the fractures to widen, had expected isolation and suspicion to create openings. Instead, the Titans had chosen differently, had chosen each other. It wouldn't be enough to stop him permanently. Nothing ever was. But it would be enough for today. And sometimes Raven reflected, as the tower materialized around them, today was all you could ask for. Though as Ben stumbled slightly, the Ultimatrix flickering with an error pattern Raven had never seen before, she wondered if today had cost more than any of them realized yet. And somewhere in the wreckage of the warehouse district, buried in shattered technology, a small device still pulsed with stolen data. Slade's insurance. His real objective achieved even in apparent defeat. The convergence had come. The moment when everything collided. They'd survived it. But survival, Raven knew from experience, and victory were not the same thing. Now came the harder part. Learning to trust again after betrayal had been considered. Learning to work together after seeing how easily they could fall apart. The tower's medical bay waited. Rest, recovery, and questions none of them were ready to answer yet. But those were problems for tomorrow. Tonight they'd survived. That would have to be enough. The medical bay was quiet, except for the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Ben sat on the examination table while Cyborg ran diagnostics on the Ultimatrix. The device's holographic interface flickered with error codes that even Cyborg's advanced systems couldn't fully decode. 3 days since the warehouse. 3 days of intermittent glitches, transformation delays, and warning patterns that hadn't existed before Slade's portal. It's learning. Ben said it quietly, watching the error cascade scroll past. Adapting to whatever that thing's claws did to it, but the adaptation's unstable. How unstable Cyborg's scan deepened, pulling up comparative data from before the fight. I tried going jet ray this morning. Got halfway through the transformation and it just stopped. Dumped me back to human. Ben's hand rested on the Ultimatrix's faceplate. First time that's ever happened outside of combat interference. Cyborg's expression went carefully neutral. The kind of neutral that meant he was thinking about worst-case scenarios. "You tell Robin." "Not yet." Ben met his eyes. "Because I know what happens when I do." He updates Protocol Omega, adds transformation failure to the threat matrix, starts calculating how much more dangerous I am when the one thing keeping me useful stops working reliably. "Man, I'm not mad about it." Ben cut him off. "That's his job, preparing for things to go wrong. I just need to figure out if this is temporary or if I'm working with damaged equipment from now on." The monitoring equipment beeped a warning. Cyborg pulled up new data, his human eye narrowing. "Your baseline energy signature's shifted, not by much, maybe 2%, but it's there." "Side effect from the portal scan?" Ben asked, though he already knew the answer. "Or from whatever Trigon tried to do when he touched the device directly." Cyborg closed the diagnostic display. "We won't know for sure unless we do deeper analysis, which means letting Raven probe the Ultimatrix with magic while you tear apart its code architecture." Ben nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know. Full transparency, right? That's what we agreed to." "That's what we agreed to," Cyborg confirmed. "But Ben, you don't have to do this alone. Whatever's wrong, we figure it out together. That's what teams do." The words landed with more weight than probably intended. 3 days ago, Ben had made a choice. Stayed in the fight despite being the portal's target. Trusted Robin's command even after learning about the simulations. Chosen the team over personal safety. The team was choosing him back. But trust Ben was learning came with obligations that went both ways. "Schedule the analysis." Ben slid off the examination table. "But I want Robin there. And I want full access to whatever you find. No sanitized reports. No protecting me from bad news." "Deal." Cyborg offered his fist. Ben bumped it. "For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most people would. Finding out someone's been planning to take you down, then still showing up every day. That takes guts. Or stupidity." Ben headed for the door. "I haven't decided which yet." The tower's common room held an uncomfortable quiet. Starfire prepared tea with focused intensity that suggested she was using the task to avoid thinking. Beast Boy sat on the couch in gorilla form gaming controller, dwarfed by massive hands, his usual commentary replaced by silence. Raven meditated in her corner, but even her stillness felt strained. Robin stood at the window overlooking Jump City. Same position Ben had found him in for the past 3 days. Watching. Calculating. Preparing for the next crisis. "The perimeter sensors online?" Robin asked without turning. "All green." Cyborg settled into his chair. "No dimensional distortions, no Slade signatures, no demonic energy spikes. It's been quiet. Too quiet." Robin's reflection in the glass looked haunted. Slade got what he came for. Trigon learned what he needed. They both withdrew. That's not victory. That's them being satisfied with the data collected. Then we use the time to prepare better. Ben moved to join him at the window. "Figure out countermeasures. Shore up vulnerabilities. Isn't that the whole point? The point is to stop them before they can execute whatever they're planning next." Robin finally turned to face the room. "Which is why I'm calling a full team debrief. Everything we learned. Everything that went wrong. Everything we need to change going forward." The team assembled with practiced efficiency. Positions taken. Displays activated. Robin pulled up tactical data with the methodical precision of someone who'd been preparing this presentation for days. "We survived." Robin started there. But survival came at cost. We exposed weaknesses, made mistakes, and our enemies documented every one of them. He pulled up footage from the warehouse fight. Ben transforming, the entity attacking, the portal attempting to pull Ben through. All of it analyzed, frame by frame. Slade wasn't trying to summon a weapon. Robin's tactical assessment continued. He was testing a hypothesis, whether the Ultimatrix could be targeted through dimensional manipulation. The answer is yes. Which means next time he'll be better prepared. As will we. Starfire's optimism sounded forced, but genuine. We know the threat now. We can defend against it. Can we? Robin's question hung heavy, because our defense relied on Ben making the right choice under pressure. Staying in the fight instead of running. Following orders instead of going solo. Trusting us despite knowing we'd been treating him as a potential threat. His eyes found Ben's. What happens when circumstances change, when split-second decisions go differently? The room temperature dropped slightly. Raven's doing, though she didn't seem to notice. Her meditation had stopped, violet eyes open and watching. You're asking if I'll always make the team first choice. Ben said it flatly. If I'll always listen to orders. Always put Jump City above personal safety. I'm asking if we've built something sustainable or if we're one bad day away from this falling apart. Robin's honesty cut like glass. Because Triggan's betting on the latter, so is Slade. They're counting on us fracturing under pressure. Then we prove them wrong. Beast Boy's contribution came quiet but firm. We've faced worse odds before. We always figure it out. This is different. Raven's voice carried weight. Before our enemies tried to defeat us through force, Triggan tried something smarter. He studied how we react when trust breaks down, how we respond when one of us becomes a liability. And now, he knows. Knows what Cyborg asked, that we'll hesitate. Raven's eyes stayed on Robin. That leadership will second-guess itself. That power will isolate rather than integrate. Those are the cracks my father can exploit, not through combat, through patience. Robin's jaw tightened. Then we eliminate the cracks, build stronger protocols, better containment measures, clearer lines of authority and response, or we accept that cracks exist. Ben's interruption surprised everyone. Look, I get it. You want perfect systems, foolproof plans, ways to guarantee nothing goes wrong. But Robin, that's not how teams work. People aren't code. We make mistakes, we hesitate, we let each other down sometimes. The question isn't how to prevent that. It's how we recover when it happens. Recovery doesn't help the 4,000 civilians who die while we're figuring things out. Robin's response came sharp. I've run the numbers. If you lose control downtown during rush hour, I know the numbers. Ben cut him off. You showed me, multiple times, in multiple scenarios. I've seen every simulation of me going bad, every projection of collateral damage, every tactical assessment of how to stop me. So yeah, Robin. I know exactly what I cost if things go wrong. The silence that followed felt like held breath, which is why I'm making changes. Ben continued. No more ultimate forms unless absolutely necessary. No transformations in populated areas without clearance. And I want you, he pointed at Robin, to teach me your threat assessment protocols, how you calculate risk, how you determine acceptable losses. Because if I'm going to be the thing everyone's afraid of, I should at least understand how that fear is measured. Robin studied him for a long moment. You're asking me to train you in tactical analysis. I'm asking you to show me how you think. So next time you're making contingency plans, I can help instead of being the variable you're planning against. Ben's tone stayed level. Full transparency goes both ways. You want to understand the Ultimatrix, I want to understand Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega is classified. Robin's automatic response. Not from me. Not anymore. Ben met his eyes. You don't get to keep planning how to stop me while keeping me in the dark about the details. Either we're teammates or I'm a threat you're managing. Pick one. The challenge hung in the air. Raven's empathic senses probably caught the emotional cross currents. Starfire's concern radiated, visible enough for anyone to feel. Cyborg and Beast Boy watched the standoff with the tension of people watching something that could go very right or very wrong. Robin pulled up a file. Protocol Omega. Still incomplete. Still full of gaps and theoretical approaches. This is what I've been working on. Robin's admission came hard. Scenarios, containment strategies, override attempts, everything I could think of to stop you if Trigon's corruption succeeded. It's not complete. Probably never will be. Because you're right. I can't account for every variable. He transferred the file to the main display. Let everyone see the simulations, the tactical assessments, the cold calculations of acceptable losses and necessary force. It's not pretty, Robin continued, and it's not something I'm proud of, but it's necessary. Because the alternative is hoping everything works out. And hope isn't a strategy. Ben examined the protocols with the same focused intensity he'd shown studying the Ultimatrix error codes. Some of this is solid. The dimensional interference patterns, the transformation disruption sequences, but here, he pointed at a section, you're assuming I'd resist containment. That's wrong. If I'm compromised, I'd want you to shut me down fast. So the approach should be aggressive, not cautious. You're helping me refine contingencies to stop you. Robin's statement came somewhere between question and observation. I'm making sure that if you need to stop me, you can actually do it. Ben pulled up another section. Because Raven's right. Trigon's playing a long game, and part of that game is making me too dangerous to keep around. If we don't have solid countermeasures, eventually you'll have to choose between the city and me. I'd rather make that choice easy. Starfire's distress spiked visible. Ben, no. We would never... You would. Ben's certainty was gentle, but absolute. You should. That's what good leaders do. They make the hard choices. Robin knows that. I'm just making sure he has the tools to make those choices work. Raven stood her movement, drawing attention. This is what my father wanted. Not our destruction, our preparation for it. He's teaching us to see each other as problems to solve instead of people to trust. Maybe, Ben acknowledged. Or maybe we're just being realistic about what we're dealing with. I'm not human. I'm not even fully from this dimension anymore. The Ultimatrix makes me powerful, but it also makes me vulnerable in ways we're still discovering. Pretending that's not a factor doesn't make us stronger. It makes us unprepared. So we prepare. Robin said it firmly. Together. Protocol Omega becomes a joint project. You help me understand your limitations. I help you understand tactical doctrine. We build something that works whether you're the asset or the threat. And Trigon's cyborg's question. What do we do about him learning our patterns? We change the patterns. Raven's suggestion came quiet but confident. Father expects us to fracture, expects isolation and suspicion. So we do the opposite. We integrate. We share information. We make sure no one's carrying weight alone. Easier said than done. Beast Boy's observation. No offense, but we just spent 3 days barely talking to each other. Integration's gonna take work. Then we work. Robin closed Protocol Omega, but didn't delete it. Just encrypted it with a dual lock system. One key for him. One for Ben. Starting now. Full team access to threat assessments, regular briefings on everyone's status, no more secret contingencies. Can we actually do that? Beast Boy asked. The whole transparency thing. Robin looked at each team member in turn. Starfire's hopeful expression, Cyborg's cautious optimism, Raven's guarded acceptance, and Ben's steady readiness. We can try, Robin said finally. It won't be perfect. We'll make mistakes. But if Trigon's betting on us falling apart, the best defense is proving him wrong, one day at a time. Ben extended his hand. One day at a time. Robin took it. The handshake lasted 3 seconds, long enough to mean something, short enough to avoid melodrama. We should rest. Starfire's practical observation. All of us. True rest, not the watching for threats kind. Good idea, Cyborg agreed. I'll set perimeter alerts. Anyone tries anything, we'll know. The team dispersed slowly. Not quite comfortable yet, but functioning. Moving like people who'd survived something together and were figuring out what came next. Ben found Raven in her meditation chamber an hour later. Can I ask you something? He waited for her nod. Your father. Does he ever just give up, or is this going to be every fight for the rest of our lives? He's patient. Raven's answer came measured. He can wait centuries, but he's also practical. If we prove difficult enough, if the cost of corrupting us exceeds the value, he'll move to easier targets. So we make ourselves too expensive to bother with. More or less. Raven's slight smile held no humor, though I suspect he's already gotten value from this encounter. He learned how you think, how Robin thinks, how the team responds under pressure. That information is worth more to him than any immediate victory. Great. Ben settled against the wall. So we're basically long-term investments in his portfolio of future apocalypses. Welcome to my world. Raven's tone carried dark amusement. It gets easier. Eventually. Sort of. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest. Raven returned to her meditation position. But Ben, you made the right choice. At the warehouse, staying in the fight, trusting Robin. I know it didn't feel like winning. But Trigon expected you to run, expected self-preservation to override loyalty. You surprised him, and my father doesn't like surprises. Will that matter long-term? Maybe, maybe not. But it matters now, and now is all we get to work with. Ben left her to her meditation, descended to the main level, found Robin still at the window overlooking the city. You going to sleep at all? Ben asked. Eventually. Robin didn't turn. I just keep thinking about what comes next. Slade's still out there. Trigon's still planning, and we've shown them our entire playbook. So we write a new playbook. Ben joined him at the window, one they haven't seen before. Think it's that simple? No, but I think it's worth trying anyway. Ben watched the city lights. I'm not going anywhere. Not until we figure out how to send me home properly. And maybe not even then. Depends on whether you guys can put up with me. We'll manage. Robin's tone carried the ghost of a smile. Just don't make me regret scrapping the kill switch protocols. There were kill switch protocols. There were theoretical kill switch protocols. I deleted them after you helped refine the containment sequences. Robin finally turned from the window. Turns out mutual cooperation works better than unilateral control. Who knew? Batman would be so disappointed in you. Good. Robin headed for his quarters. I'm not trying to be Batman. I'm trying to be better. He left Ben alone with the view. The city stretched out below, protected by heroes who were learning that strength came from trust as much as power. That preparation meant including people rather than controlling them. That team survived through honesty, even when honesty hurt. It wasn't perfect. The Ultimatrix still glitched. Protocol Omega still existed. Trigon still waited. Slade still plotted. But tomorrow, they'd face it together, and that would have to be enough. Across the city, in a location known only to himself, Slade Wilson reviewed data on multiple screens. Dimensional signatures, energy patterns, behavioral analyses. He deleted 90% of it, kept 10% that mattered. I don't need the boy. Slade spoke to empty air, his masked face reflecting in dark screens. I just needed to know how they react when he's threatened, how they rebuild after fracture, how they adapt under pressure. The data compiled into a single file, encrypted, transmitted to an address that existed outside normal space. Trigon would find it interesting. But Slade had gotten what he came for, understanding. And understanding, he reflected, as he erased the last traces of his presence, was worth more than any weapon. The screens went dark. Slade disappeared into shadows that had always been his home. And Jump City slept on, protected by heroes who were learning that the hardest battles were the ones against your own doubt. Tomorrow would bring new threats, but tonight, the Titans stood together, fractured but holding, uncertain but committed, human but trying. And in the end, that was all anyone could ask. The resolution wasn't victory. It was the choice to keep fighting anyway, one day at a time, together.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to turn on notification so you won't miss out future videos. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time in this channel.